Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. This week, we complete the history of makeup effects with part 3 and my friend Ryan Peterson. And I'm going to keep this short because we spoke for almost 4 hours. So this is a really long one. I know we missed a lot of stuff, I'm sure, but we did our best. Anyway, what's going on with me? You can see back here, I've been doing some studies to sell and for promotional videos for the Dark Art Society. I'm doing, my friend Scumquire is helping me. He's a great artist. Look him up, Scumquire. He's editing some shorts and reels and stuff to try and get the word out about the podcast. So I've been painting some studies relating to the some of the stuff we've talked about in these last few episodes, so you can do, use clips of the podcast over the time lapses. So they're working out pretty well so far. That's pretty much it. I'm just about ready to start painting for my solo show. I almost started designing paintings tonight, but I ran out of time because of this podcast that took almost 4 hours to record, but it's good. Lots of good information and insider stories and stuff. Anyway, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/darkartsociety and get your name read on the air. When you join at the $5 and above level, you get a free, or not a free, but you get a discount coupon code for Skull Shop. Don't mind the, I forgot what these are called. Skullshop.com, SKULLSHOPPE.com. And you get a discount code for their skulls if you join at the $5 and above level. And let's see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And also if you join the Patreon, you get access to the Facebook group, which is great. And you get your name read on the podcast, and we have some new subscribers this week, so thank you. Alex Overfelt. Alex is actually a great painter. If you don't know his work, look him up. Alex Overfelt. Thank you, Alex. Razorback 1976, thank you so much. Jacob Porschman, thank you so much. And Natalia Jorick, thank you for making it happen. Really appreciate that. Also, can you please, if you so feel inclined, hit the like button, subscribe if you are not subscribed already, and share it around, because I've been doing this thing for 6 years, and I want to get it out to more people. I still feel like there's a lot of value in this podcast, and people would like it. A lot of people still don't know it exists. So, yeah, if you could do that, it would help out, and I'd appreciate it. Okay, I think that's everything. Yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, here we go. Old epic long episode. The history of makeup effects part 3. We go a little bit the 80s we missed, and then we go into the 90s and 2000s and beyond. So, well, 2000s. Yeah. All right, here we go. It's good, really good talk though. Anyway, here we go. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, Chet.
We're back.
Yes.
For part 3, and hopefully the last part. Hopefully we can get it all in one.
Well, let's just see what happens.
It's funny to think that we thought we could have gotten it in one episode. Because there's no way to get it all in one episode, I don't think.
No.
And we didn't even talk super in depth about all those movies. A lot of them we just kind of quickly talk about.
And that first episode, I got a email from, or a message from Jeff Himmel, who's an industry guy, really talented guy.
I worked with Jeff.
And he mentioned
cool
Citizen Kane and
Citizen Kane
and House of Wax, and that's
Wax.
just 2.
I know
that we really missed.
Did we get The Fly?
The original?
The original Fly? I don't think we got the original Fly. That had a cool fly mask, and yeah, it's just I guess
We can do what we can do.
Yeah, we do.
We're not going to remember everything.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
Yeah.
Speaking of forgetting some things, I have some that we left out from
Okay.
from the 80s, and I think one from the 70s. We didn't hit Phantasm, did we?
No.
Phantasm was great, and that was like well, that didn't have a ton of makeup effects, did it? Because it was like Phantasm 2 was the one that Mark Shostrom did, and I think
Yes.
that was that in the 80s?
That I
Or
think was
90s?
in the late 80s, and
think
it
so.
was a really great effects show. Mark Shostrom was he the only
1988.
Yeah, was he the only guy that did the effects on that, or
I
did
think so.
okay.
I think
Great
so.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark's awesome. He was on did you hear his episode where he talked about that ghost?
I did.
That was freaky.
Really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, but they did, but you know what, I don't even know that there was like, I don't know who did the makeup effects for the original, because it seemed like it was more prop type stuff. Like there was the finger, but I thought the finger was great. The cut off fingers with the like mustard blood. And then it turned into that weird fly thing. And then there was the little, scrunched down guys with the, Jawa looking guys, the, monks hoods.
Those are really creepy. Did you notice that when he slammed the tall man's the fingers in the door? It wasn't the tall man, was it? That they when it wailed, it was the sound effect they used in the thing.
Oh, really?
It was like a stock sound effect, a really cool one. But also the sphere that hits it. That was kind of a makeup
and the
effect.
drill. That drill effect
sphere
was amazing because like the skin started peeling up. I don't know if you remember when it drilled.
I do.
It was like, I remember thinking, damn, how did they do that?
I bet it was just probably mortician's wax.
Yeah, probably. And just on the forehead, and it wasn't a sharp bit or whatever. But anyway,
so it's so good. It's such a good movie.
Yeah, I love that. That movie. That might be a good episode to do on that movie. I love that movie because it's so weird. It's like a 14-year-old boy's nightmare. That's what it feels like. The whole movie feels kind of like a weird dream. Yes, Hellraiser was another one we missed.
Bob Keane.
Those were great. Really cool effects, really great designs. And I think
that was the introduction of Clive Barker.
Yeah. Yep. And a lot of those, I think, were designed by Clive, because Clive's a pretty amazing artist. He's a great artist, great painter, great designer.
Great artist.
But yeah, Pinhead and all that, all those Cenobites were kind of like, changed.
Those are groundbreaking.
Yeah, they changed the idea of what a demon could be. You know what I mean? Instead of like typical horns and a classic occult demons, these are more like other dimensional demons that were with that weird bondage outfit gear and very strange. Really cool.
Really cool. Did that have that really bizarre? Yeah, it did at the very end when one of the characters is like stretched by all these hooks, and just before he explodes, he goes, "Jesus wept."
Yeah.
And his eyes are straight. Oh my goodness, that was kind of courageous, just right there.
Yeah.
Terrific imagery and references, but it was.
And there was that amazing kind of like scene where the body formed on the floorboards, and
that was really good.
Like,
that was well done.
Yeah, it was really strange. It was weird too. It was really odd. The positioning of the body, I remember, just like it was strange. It just looked really weird as it was forming, and it was kind of like a thing where they melted something down, and shot it in reverse. And that thing running down the hall was kind of like, remember that thing running down that hall and its arms were going? It's like, a little bit rough around the edges, but conceptually it was so cool. Just the idea of this thing I remember its legs were sort of running along the wall, and
especially the shots of her running, and you've seen it just behind her. So it wasn't focused just on it, but it was there. And I think they probably had to because of automating it or motivating it was probably difficult. Probably someone in a
Yeah,
wheelchair
you could
and a
you could
guy.
see in some shots you could see the rig that they were pushing it on. It was kind of
Oh,
sticking out on the bottom. I think if you watch,
oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's kind of funny. Um, Return of the Living Dead is another one which had kind of the story behind that one was. I mean, I was I have to admit I was never a fan of that movie because I was like it was I wasn't into comedy horror at that time. I expected it to be more like a sequel to Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead or something, and it was totally over the top. And I kind of enjoy it now, going back to it, just because it's the nostalgia factor. It's kind of fun, it's kind
Yeah,
of
Dan O'Bannon. He
yeah,
directed
I
it.
know, yeah, right. But
And,
apparently,
and yeah, I liked it too. I like it. I
yeah,
enjoyed it.
I was like when I saw it, I was like, man, I was not into it at all. But you
You didn't
know,
work at Tony at the time because
no,
Tony Gardner did some of those effects.
right. So I think the main guy was Bill Munns, who was hired to do the zombies, and
Yes.
his stuff was not great quality.
He
And
did the oil. Didn't he do the oil?
the Tarman, no,
Starman zombie?
he didn't. I don't think he did Tarman. I think that's what happened is they brought in somebody else to do Tarman. I think didn't they they brought Kenny
Oh.
Myers in to do Tarman
Oh.
because a lot. I'm 90. I'm almost positive of that
Okay.
because I guess a lot of the stuff that was being made for the film wasn't working that well. Because some of those makeups are super rough too. They're not great, but that
Yeah.
Tar Man was kind of amazing. And then Tony did that cut in half dog, which was cool. The anatomy dog. It was like
Hmm.
an anatomy model that came to life. Remember
Didn't
that? It
he
was
do also the corpse on the autopsy
and the
table?
half corpse, yeah. And it's like,
That was.
yeah, that was great. And those were both Tarman and the autopsy lady were both kind of I think later add-ins. Like
Mm.
as they were going, they hired Tony and I think who did I say?
Kenny Myers.
Kenny Myers, yeah, to come in.
Matt's
Yeah,
glad you mentioned him. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and those were kind of great effects, classics. Invaders from Mars, wasn't that 80s? Those were those Stan Winston
Stan Winston.
alien suits that were crazy, kind of cool, crazy designs.
I have mixed feelings about them. They're ambitious, but you can kind of tell what's going on,
Oh yeah,
but they're still fun. That movie's I
I
love the
haven't
concept.
I haven't seen it since it came out. Probably, honestly.
It's kind of goofy,
Yeah.
but but those yeah, those Martians were interesting. And I think they took a lot of work.
Yeah, didn't they have like
I'm
two people in the suit or something? Like a
Yes,
little
and
person on someone's shoulders or something
I
like
kind of
that?
thought it was kind of mixed results, but you could tell that there was a lot of really fine work that went into it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Brian Pennicus, Alec Gillis, Steve Wang painted those,
Oh,
and
really?
I'm not sure if Matt Rose was on it or not, but it was
Mm.
a good crew,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
crew.
Okay, what about V? Do you remember V?
Yes.
That I remember seeing V on TV. It was a science fiction TV series. I remember seeing that and thinking those were so cool, and they're ripping their faces off to reveal these reptilian makeups. Did it have an impression on you? Because I saw it
Oh
when they
yeah,
came out. I remember thinking like this is better than I expected on a TV movie.
yeah.
And
I was in junior high at the time, and I remember humming the theme song in PE in gym class during running, and I was humming the theme song, the opening theme song. It was memorable, really good. I
I
could
don't,
hum it to you right
what
now
is it?
I
I don't remember it.
it just goes da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and then it accompanies this really cool synthesizer that just yeah, it's great.
Wow.
But
Was that
those
Steve
are
Neal
those are
or
oh
James Cummins? Was it James?
hmm I don't I quite sure Steve Neal was involved, and I remember Robert Englund had a and Jeff Yeager. They had roles in it, and
Really?
yeah, I loved it. I loved it. It was exciting,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. It was cool, and the eating the didn't someone eat like a
Hmm.
small animal and the
And
throat bulge, or the jaw opened really wide, and I'm trying to look up who did the effects, because I think it was.
well, James Cummins did a movie around that time that kind of involved aliens and people peeling their skin back. And what was that? Oh, I
Oh, so
really
maybe I'm
can't
getting
work.
him confused.
It could be, but I think it was Steve Neal. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, let me see. I'm right here on IMDb. Come on. Hmm. Interesting. Werner Kepler.
Hmm.
Oh, that's series makeup. That's not like makeup
Oh,
effects. Special effects. Special visual effects. Huh. Wonder if he's uncredited. Damn, it's not on here.
hmm.
Oh well. Well, I'm sure someone will tell us.
Yeah,
That's how we keep getting all these movies we miss, is
I can't
people are
believe I
emailing us.
forgot who did that those makeups. Because yeah, there was a mechanical head, and well, maybe it was just Steve Neal.
Yeah. Oh well.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so that one was one that somebody told us we should mention. Beauty in the
It
Oh, it.
as far as like
That's
TV
right.
series, it with Bart Mixon
That's
supervising.
right. That's right.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of great talent on that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. That one's still there's something about that movie. It's like it's got a TV movie vibe to it, which is not good.
Well,
But
are you talking about the series or the
yeah.
that came out in the 88 in 88? Yeah,
Yeah,
John
yeah.
Ritter was in it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's kind of got this TV movie feel to it, but it's really good though. I think it's really
I
good.
thought it was good too.
It
I really enjoyed it.
just looks a
Yeah,
little TV movie cheap
I guess
to me,
so.
you know.
Yeah, but the
But
makeups are great.
yeah, the makes are great, and then but then there's that spider at the end, just like
Oh,
as a spider. I've seen pictures. It was a cool sculpture.
yes,
It
because Julia Roscoe sculpted it
yeah,
and Miriam Sims painted it.
yeah.
It
So it
was
was.
really beautiful looking. It was just, where did it go wrong? Just how it was filmed
Yeah, it
or
was like I think the
staged?
way it was shot and how it
Yeah,
just was weird. It was weird, and the ending of that book was kind of impossible to film. It was
yeah,
different. There was that big turtle. There was a giant turtle floating through space, and that represented God, kind of. And then there was the big spider, and they fought or something.
Did you? Oh, I never read the book.
Oh man, you got to read the
I'm
book.
not.
It's so
Oh,
amazing,
okay.
so good. Yeah,
Oh,
it's like definitely better than any of the movies for sure. Even the new ones, which are amazing.
well, there was a photograph or a picture of an image of Julia Roscoe sculpting the head,
Hmm.
and I remember being really impressed with that. And I would
Yeah.
just stare. I go, "That's really well done."
Hmm.
And then, see, I had the chance to kind of help out the guys on The Stand. Was filmed in Utah.
Mm.
And I think it was Joe Harlow and those guys. I think it was Joe that was talking about the upcoming Jurassic Park movie that was coming in. And I remember telling him I saw a picture of the Triceratops sculpture in A Day in the Life in Hollywood, this big book that came out,
Hmm.
and it has Steven Spielberg sitting next to it. And I told him, I said, that's one of the most beautiful sculptures I've ever seen. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's Julia Roscoe." And then I connected the two and went, "Oh, that makes sense."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense because I was so impressed with that head
Hmm.
that he was sculpting. So yeah, he's really an incredible
He's
talent.
amazing. Yeah, he's super
Yeah,
amazing sculptor. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think it was like, I think now that I'm thinking about it, I heard that they barely had any time to shoot that final scene, and it was
that
really
makes
brightly
sense.
lit in the cave, which is also it was lit in a
Hmm.
crappy way, and I think they had to rush the shooting it, and it ends up looking kind of stiff, and then they
Yeah,
combined it with stop motion, and it just kind of
yeah.
didn't work
It didn't.
But man, there's so many great scenes in that movie. It's really the original TV series was. I still watch it from time to time. It's great. You got to read the
Yeah,
book though, man. If
I,
you ever get a chance
I,
to
I
read a good
will.
book, it's thick as hell, but it's so good.
Oh, I love Stephen King.
It's one of
Yeah,
his best books.
yeah.
It's crazy,
I
crazy
love
good.
Stephen King as a person.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. He's like I want to be friends with him. Why can't I meet him? Why can't he be my friend?
I know. I met him on the stand,
Oh really?
and he was so friendly, genuine, and anyone that could write The Green Mile or
Yeah,
Carrie is a very compassionate, good person, and
yeah,
I just
yeah.
really admire him.
Sometimes though there's artists that can make these masterful works and then they're assholes in their personal lives.
He wasn't
But
when
he's
I
not
met
one.
him.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying him. I'm just
Oh no,
saying
no, yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
the
I know.
just because people can write like that or do amazing, beautiful paintings or make these amazing movies doesn't make them necessarily nice people that you would think they would be. Sometimes they're not. It's a weird thing when that happens.
You have to
Oh, look at that
ultimately.
kitty.
Yeah, here's Molly. She wants some lovin's. She's she's my sweetie.
She is so cute.
You have to kind of separate the artist from the art. I,
But
you know,
yeah, yeah. But when they don't, when they live up to it, it's so nice. Like you're saying with
it
Stephen
is.
King and
Yeah,
Guillermo's like that. There's a lot of people that kind of live up to their reputation
yeah.
as cool people. Okay,
And,
Beauty and the
uh, oh, Beauty and the
Beauty and the
Beast.
Beast TV show. This is another Rick
That makeup,
Baker
Rick design is
and
wonderful.
Ron Perlman.
Hmm.
That was great makeup.
My first foam appliance was based on that. I
Oh
tried to
yeah,
duplicate it. Yeah.
cool.
So
Again, there's
we're
that the hair work that
uh-huh.
you like so much.
Yep.
You're a hair work guy. Um, yeah, what a cool thing to have a a show and a small thing to do on that show to make it perfect instead of
Hmm.
like these big effects shows like Men in Black or something where it's just
Yeah, one makeup that he could just kind of yeah.
make perfect, and it shows.
And Ron Perlman has such a great face.
Yeah, he really does.
Such a great one, and he's like Willem Dafoe. They have these just incredible
Yeah,
faces.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
just such character in them. Or Boris Karloff, like we were
yep.
talking about, that really kind of. I mean, Ron
Boris.
Perlman was like the perfect person to play Hellboy, just because of the way his face looked. I thought uh, what Matt Rose's that initial sculpture that he did on Ron Perlman
Yep,
that was like just nailed it.
he nailed it. They were thinking of at one point. I thought they were thinking of using Vin Diesel.
Oh,
Diesel,
huh.
and he's got a great voice, and he doesn't have the interesting face, but that would have been kind of an interesting approach too. But I'm glad they went with Ron Perlman
Yeah, yeah,
because he's one of those character actors that's
right.
deserving of a
Leading
central
role,
role like that, a lead.
definitely.
Yeah, that's a beautiful makeup. And I have uh Hellboy linked with Hellboy 2 um I think that was in the early 2000s.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and that of course Hellboy 2 was and Hellboy was the introduction of Mike Elizalde
Mm-hmm.
to
Yep.
effects. And so that's important, the founding of spectral motion. But
But that's
yeah,
getting down the line. We gotta save that
yes, yes, yes,
towards
you're
the
right.
end.
So let's get back to what you're.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get out of the '80s. So the other one is Day of the Dead. That was a major effects film, and that
Yep.
was late '80s. That was
Really good
Tom
effects by Tom
Savini's
Savini.
makeup effects kind of perfected, like Tom Savini with some money. Tom Savini with an amazing crew and
Hmm.
money to do the
Yep.
effects right. It was because we're talking about Dawn of the Dead being, kind of sit by the seat of your pants. They're just like cranking stuff out, and some of it looked not great, but most of it looked cool in its own weird cartoony way, but even a lot of the gore looked really disgusting and disturbing and great, especially for its time. But Day of the Dead was sort of like he had this. It seemed like he had a budget and an amazing crew, which was like
So the crew was
Nicotero, Greg Nicotero.
Greg Nicotero, Mike Tersick, the late Mike Tersick did some sculpting on it. And then what's his name that passed away that was part of Optic Nerve?
Vulich.
John Vulich.
John Vulich.
I think he sculpted the Bub.
Yeah.
Yep, Bub.
Which is
a great makeup.
Yeah.
Great makeup. Great performance.
Yeah.
I really enjoy Day of the Dead. I watch it regularly.
Yeah.
I love the music.
Yeah.
And everything about it.
Yeah. It's
Laurie Cardell, the lead. I thought she was very good.
Great characters and great impending sense of claustrophobia, and the bad guys are really.
What's his name was so good in it.
Joe Pilato.
Joe Pilato.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one again, like Dawn of the Dead was such a high, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead were such a high bar for me that anything was going to be, I was going to be disappointed in. And when it came out, I was like, I don't love it. It's cool. And, but going back to it, as an older adult, I totally love it now. It's great. I love the opening scene's super cool, with the alligator in the streets and all the zombies and remember they're going down to in the helicopter in the beginning.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's a guy walking out of a bank, and then an alligator walks down and
then the lead title comes is on top of that tongue.
That Dr. Tongue. Mr.
Dr. Tongue
or whatever. Yeah,
and that was great.
Yeah, that was super. What a fun.
The guy who did the music his name was John Harrison, and he is one of the. I know this is about a little bit of a tangent, but he's one of those really unsung talents in the industry because he did the music to Creepshow.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I've tried watching the series on Shudder, and his presence is missed on it because that music in Creepshow and in Day of the Dead was very distinctive and well done. And he went on to direct the TV show of Dune.
Wow.
And then I saw his name on the credit of the recent movies. So he must be a real Dune, aficionado or historian. But anyway, I have to throw out him because I love his music, and he even did music for Tales from the Dark Side.
Oh,
and that's something we can mention.
Yeah.
I love Tales from the Dark Side.
That's right, Tales from the Dark Side. That's another.
Brian Moore worked on that, and a lot of guys.
Oh, really?
Tom Savini directed an episode and did some effects. Ed French. There's a guy we forgot. French.
That's Ed French. Ed French. Ed French now has a YouTube channel where he narrates classic horror ghost stories. And classic horror. Yeah, he just reads these kind of old horror stories. It's great. It's because he's got this amazing speaking voice. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and I guess he's maybe an actor also, I think. And so I was listening to a lot of that stuff for a long time. It was really, really fun. Interesting.
He did nice work.
Yeah, he did. Because I remember seeing him in Fangoria. He was like, he was in an issue of Fangoria. Another one, Matthew Mungle's another one of these guys. It was a great makeup artist that did like some weird, obscure movies. And then eventually I think Matthew now does, I think he's still working, and he does just like union makeup stuff, not special effects oriented as far as my understanding of it. I could be wrong, but
he's done some nice work.
Yeah,
I'm glad you mentioned him.
He was great. He taught me. I remember the first time I saw someone professionally run foam latex was with him, because I was working.
Did you work for him?
No, I worked at Cinema Secrets. Remember that makeup store, Marie Stein's shop? I was just like a stock boy. My dad knew someone who was in the makeup union who knew Maurice, and basically was like, got me a job there. And it didn't really work out because it's like I didn't want to be. I have my license, so I must have been 17 or 18. It was. I think it was 17 or 18.
So you drove up from San Pedro to Burbank?
Well, no. The person my dad knew from college I stayed at their house.
Oh,
And so it was like in the area. Yeah, it was a weird time because I was like so shy and staying at these people's house I didn't know, and they were like,
that would be awkward.
yeah, yeah, you know how it is because you're shy like that. And it was like they wanted me to come and eat with them, and I would like, I would go buy my own food, go in my little room and watch TV or listen
Yeah.
to music. I was just not that guy. But anyway, there was the condition was like, yeah, you can work here, and then I'll get you work on some commercials and stuff, sculpting work and design work, and so there was they got this, I guess, some commercial for these Yetis came in, and then Maurice hired Matthew Mungle to do the makeup and the prosthetics, basically farmed it out to him, and then had me do some designs for the Yeti. And
Hmm.
so I went to his house, and he kind of showed me. I always remember this. Like he was mixing the chemicals in the foam latex, and he was pouring in like the gel or the foaming agent, and he was not mixing them separately. He was mixing them all in the same bowl, and he would just
Mhm.
change the weight to, the tear it back to zero with the triple beam scale.
Yep. Yep.
You get your measurement of the first one, then you tear it back to zero, and then you add more. And it's more risky because you could mess up if you have to get it right. But he put too much of, I think, foaming agent or gelling agent in, and he's like, it was just a little too much. And he took a paper towel and he dipped it in just the gelling agent and pulled it out, and then it went to zero. And that was like, I thought that was the
Oh, wow.
coolest. Like that was the first time I'd seen anybody do that. I was like, wow, what a great idea. Cause I was just some kid. It
Oh,
sounds dumb, but it's like, it was like it's stuff like that are the things you learn when you're in a professional environment, these weird things they wouldn't teach you in a school necessarily, or it's not common knowledge. It's just these weird little
it's
nuggets.
invaluable to be able to see a professional
Yeah.
mix up foam.
And he,
Yeah.
and he was
Oh,
so good to me. I mean, I didn't work that long, but he was so nice. He was really a sweet guy, very
I'm glad to hear that.
supportive,
Yeah.
super nice guy. Um,
Because I don't hear much about him as
I
far as what
know.
his personality is like. But
Oh, he was just the nicest. You would love him.
oh,
He's like
good.
he's a guy. He's kind of like you, like nice, mild mannered, sweet person.
Oh,
He was great. He was really really great. Um, you would love him. But yeah, Ed French. I remember in Fango there was a profile on Ed French, and he
hmm,
had this pirate makeup. Do you remember this? The jaw, it was like a skeletal
yeah.
pirate, and the jaw was sticking way out. And I
Oh,
remember thinking it was so cool. Just this one makeup design. I don't know what I think it was from Tales from the Dark Side, I think. It was an episode where there was like
was it a pirate or was it a witch?
there was there was one. It was a Halloween episode, and there was a
Yes.
pirate, and there was like a witch. There was like three
Yes.
characters that were like Halloween costumes, but made real, sort of.
Yeah, they torment. I think they torment a kid at night. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and the episode, the circus. He did a werewolf, a Frankenstein makeup, and a vampire
Hmm.
that was really cool. It was very Nosferatu-esque, but it was
Hmm.
sculpted, and he wore it.
Oh
And
wow.
so he was in it. You're right. He's an
Yeah,
actor, so he
yeah.
did it. And that episode is really good if you haven't seen it in a while. I have the box set of all
Oh
the
really?
Tales from the Dark Side.
Yeah, I need to see them. The opening of that is just like brings
So
such
good.
nostalgia. The voice and everything.
1 o'clock on Saturday nights, 1 a.m., right after
Wow.
Saturday Night Live. And and I would sometimes fall asleep, but I remember waking up to that opening theme song, and it's already dreamy,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just like yeah,
So cool.
wonderful memory.
Okay, so and then the last one I have on my 80s list before we get into the 90s is Terminator, right? We missed
Yeah,
Terminator, which
Miss
had some
Terminator.
really cool Stan Winston makeup effects. Of course the robot, but I mean it was cool, but the scene where he's operating on his own arm and the prosthetics and having that robot eye showing through.
Yeah.
That was pretty fake Arnold head. I believe there's a fake Arnold head for
It was a fake
something.
Arnold head, and that was one of the, in Poltergeist there was a fake head that rips its skin off,
Yeah.
and that was I think done by Craig
Yeah,
Reardon,
that was amazing.
and that was cool, but you could kind of see that the head was bobbling on a
Yeah.
but I noticed they kind of corrected that on the in the Terminator, but it's I was surprised that there's an edit that kind of drew attention to the fact that it wasn't, that it wasn't really Arnold. And I don't know if I can describe it, but hmm, yeah, there should have been a different cut where it like focuses on his hand after a shot of the fake and then cuts to Arnold.
hmm
But it instead cut from I think the fake head to the camera to Arnold, but with the camera moving. So there wasn't an insert that needed to kind of divide
Yeah.
the two.
You got to divide it so that it's
Yes.
not a good idea to have a fake head and a real head right cutting right next to each other, because then you can just
Yes. And I was
basically compare
surprised
them.
Cameron did that actually because he's so good at everything
Hmm
else. But I thought that wasn't quite the best cut.
Right.
And but the work that went into it was beautiful. And that and exit that skeleton. What do you call him? The
The robot.
Terminator skeleton.
Yeah.
Yeah,
hmm
was so well designed, so well
Yeah.
sculpted.
Yeah.
That head, I think Shane Mahan did that head, and it's kind of flawless.
Yeah. Pretty
Really
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great movie. You know the story about that movie too, that Harlan Ellison, it was
Yes.
ripped off of Harlan Ellison, basically.
Yeah, the demon with the golden the hand or something.
Demon with the
Yeah,
glass hand,
glass
and
hand.
another one, and another Outer Limits that he wrote. I think it was like kind of a
Yes.
combination of two Outer Limits, and I think he sued them, right?
So there's a credit
Yeah,
that Cameron was forced to overlay at the end. I think it just says acknowledging the works of Harlan Ellison,
right.
something like that,
Yeah,
which is appropriate. I'm glad he did that.
yeah, yeah.
Not to blame him because subconsciously that's kind of the scary part of the subconscious is you may think you have an original idea, you're grabbing an
Oh
original
yeah.
idea,
hmm
and it's someone else's. It's just
Or,
up there dancing around in the ether, and you think it's yours, and you grab it, pull it
yeah.
down, and it was actually someone else's
Well,
that they
like
put in years ago.
yeah, yeah. Whenever I get an idea for a painting now, if it's like something I think I haven't seen, I immediately Google it. I Google the
Oh,
description
that's
to see
smart.
if other people have done it, and a lot of times they have. In which case, I'm like, okay, I have to kind of change. I have to maybe develop this more, or not even use it at all.
Mm,
But
yeah,
like David Lynch says, also that ideas are floating in the ether, and it's like we all kind of get to grabbing them. Some people grab them at the same time, and whoever gets them out in
hmm
the public consciousness first gets the credit. That's just the way it is.
and that's happened to me. I've written stories. One of my screenplays. I think myself and Jack Black, or he was in a, I think it was Jack Black. Someone who was part of a Jack Black movie who wrote it got the idea simultaneously because it timed it so perfectly. So when I saw the movie, I went, "Oh no, that was
Well,
I had the idea too."
oh, really?
It involved Bigfoot, and so I won't get into it too much. That's a whole other subject, can of worms. But
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Uh, Terminator. Oh, well, real quick, do you have any more on your list? Because
and
I
that's
have just
it.
a couple. Okay, Dreamscape, Craig Reardon,
Oh
great
yeah,
movie.
and Dick Smith, didn't Dick Smith do, or no?
Greg Canham did a little quick insert of
Okay, I'm thinking of
and
Starman.
Starman.
Yeah,
Starman was with Dick, Rick, and Stan.
Rick and
And
Stan worked on that.
yes, can you
What
imagine that?
what did they do? What did they do?
So when Jeff Bridges, the alien, uh, makes contact with some DNA of Jeff Bridges, and then it grows from that DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Rick did the stage of a baby,
Oh, that's
and
right.
then Stan did the stage of more of going into a youth, a boy,
That's
and
right.
then
What a
that boy
trip.
turns, and Dick Smith did the final where it morphs into the adult Jeff Bridges, and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
really
yeah.
interesting sequence. Yeah.
And an interesting solution to that problem of technology at the time. Like Dick made, I don't know how many heads, and they're all slightly.
How the hell did he do that?
Yeah,
That's so much work.
yeah,
How did he do that?
yeah. For people who don't know, it was basically a kid's head morphing into an adult head, right? That was the
Yes.
gag. And so
Yeah.
Dick had to make, how many heads was it? Like
Something like 120 or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, it was a bunch of heads that were slightly growing into the adult head, and they like filmed them almost like stop motion.
Stop motion. One frame at a time, or a couple frames at a time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but just the idea of like doing the hair and eyes and everything on 100 and whatever heads for like a
I
split
don't
second
know.
sequence,
It's like, let's design the most difficult way conceivable to do this effect. I just think about that and it's like, oh man.
it seems like couldn't you couldn't you have taken a Jeff Bridges mechanical head that is rigged to like shrink down and suck in and kind of like
Mm,
with
mm.
pneumatics or something, and
Now that would have
shoot
been
it in
interesting.
reverse, so that you're like turning it into
Oh,
more like shrinking it down into a little boy size head somehow, and then shooting it in reverse so that it kind of, I don't know.
oh, that's really interesting because, what if they did try that where, some effects they'll like deflate or suck the air out of something, and
Hmm.
usually it's like a vacuum form, and it becomes like a skull or corpse. So a normal person's
Right.
having the life sucked out of them, like in
Yeah.
Life Force,
Right. Which is
and
another
and
one,
but,
Life Force.
but Life Force. But what if it sucked into a young boy's head, like what you're saying? How interesting that would be.
Yeah.
It would be hard, but boy, it'd be fun to kind of toy around with.
Yeah. Harder than making 120 slightly different heads. I don't know.
Oh, it's
I don't.
amazing. And he even put an eye blink in it. It's
Oh,
like,
right.
oh man.
Insane. Okay, so that's all my 80s movies. If you,
RoboCop 2, real quick. I
Robo
think that was 80s, wasn't
RoboCop
it?
2 was?
Was that 80s or early 90s?
I don't.
Oh, I could be wrong about that.
Let me see. Let me see.
If we're wrong, that would be a good
Did we?
transition into the
We didn't
90s.
get. We didn't even get RoboCop, did we?
We mentioned it. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
we did.
okay.
I don't think we got into the like the
1990.
toxic
RoboCop
oh,
2 is 1990. Yeah,
okay.
we didn't get into the melt.
Toxic waste melting man,
Yeah,
which I love,
which is amazing. Yeah, we talked about that maybe on the Thing episode or something. I think we
possibly.
talked about it, or maybe in one of your interviews. But yeah,
Yeah.
that thing was.
That's one of my favorite. Well, I love all of Rob's stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And that one, his sculpting, what's so interesting is I saw, I think it was a picture that there's a documentary on the making of RoboCop, and there was a photo I'd never seen before, Bart Mixon and the team, Stephen, whoever's on that team, applying the makeup. Maybe Stefan Dupuis, but that Melting Man makeup, and this is what I love about Rob's, was really everything was bold,
Mm-hmm.
and you could almost see like the tool marks, and
Mm-hmm.
like his shadows are always bold,
Yeah.
bold forms, and I just love it. I
Yeah.
I love thinking about it. That's what I aspire to.
Yeah.
And because when you're watching the movie, you just think, "Oh, that's neat," but you don't really think about how bold the sculpting
Mm-hmm.
is. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. It's a great makeup. It's like the best makeup in the movie, I think. And it's not even a huge part of the movie. It's just
No,
like an amazingly done effect.
yeah,
Prosthetic. Kind of simple too. Just a simple, I mean,
yep.
simple prosthetic makeup, prosthetic arm. I mean, not simple, but it's not some elaborate gag, you
Hmm.
know? Um,
He designed it so one arm has to be up and the other one down, and the one that's down is
yeah.
having droopy skin, and then the one that's up, the skin's peeling away from
Right.
and you can see the bone. And as I think Miles may have mentioned something like like an ice cream uh, melting down the cone or something
Right.
like that. But it was so good.
So great. Yeah. That's another, such a smart way to think about it. Okay. This hand's going to be this way. So the skin's everything has to be sculpted towards falling this way. This one's going to be down, so everything has to be sculpted this way.
There's like a concept behind it.
Yeah. It's like this position, this sculpture is going to make the effect work and believable. Give the sense of weight and just great.
Yeah.
So okay, we're in the 90s.
Well, let's just transition into RoboCop 2 because that was 1990.
Okay.
And what I loved about RoboCop 2 was those puppets of Murphy when he gets disassembled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's just a torso and it's just kind of jerky.
You know what? I haven't seen the movie in so long that I don't even really remember. So you have to take the lead on that. Like who?
Really well done.
Is this Rob effects still?
Yep.
Really?
And he refined the suit to where they could assemble it, put it on the actor, Peter Weller, like with it really quickly as opposed to like 6 hours before.
Oh,
I mean, like even 45 minutes they said or something like that. So everything was refined down, but that puppet was really exceptional. And yeah,
I have to watch it again.
It's kind of a mixed bag as far as a movie. Irvin Kershner directed it, and he came by ADI once when I was working because I just saw him in The Last Temptation of Christ. He was in it. He acted.
Oh, really?
And so now whenever I think or see him, I'm mildly irritated because he came into ADI once.
Who is this?
Irvin Kershner, the director of RoboCop 2 and Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay.
He's very distinctive looking. He's bald and with the beard and stuff and kind of an distinctive. He came in the shop because we were going to do something like Manila the Gorilla or something like that at ADI, and he came in just to kind of check out the shop, and he came over to my station, and he had somebody with him, and he would look at me, and then he would whisper to his assistant, and they would giggle and laugh. And then
really?
Look, and it was almost like making fun of me, and I was
wow.
like, I just remember just going, "What the hell's up with this?" I was about to say, "Hey, you're being pretty cocky for a guy that did RoboCop 2." But I didn't. I just sat there and took it.
Yeah.
And he just kind of went, I was going, that was really off-putting. So I have no idea, but it's like the kiss up, kick down kind of thing. It's like I was someone that they could do that to or whatever. It was really annoying.
That's... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It just felt wrong, but I could be totally incorrect about it. But if you look at someone and then whisper to your pal, and you don't acknowledge to the person that you're looking at what you just shared, there's something wrong there.
Yeah,
and
especially
that's kind of rude.
Yeah, if you can't even if you're not doing that, if you can't realize how it looks, then that's also kind of fucked up.
Exactly.
I had what's that guy's name? It was on, I know we're going out of sequence, but was it X-Men? It was the guy who played Juggernaut.
Yeah.
What's his name? That Vinny?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Did you work on that suit?
I did designs for it. I did design like maquettes and stuff, I think. Yeah,
Norman Cabrera, I know, worked on it, and Margaret Becerra, I think, painted it. But no, what about him?
I got a funny story. He didn't do that to me, but it was another one of those weird situations where I was like sitting there, and I was doing designs in the computer department, and he's like this big strong guy. He's like a big meathead dude, like a Vinny something. I can't think of it.
Yeah,
he's like an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure people are
they'd recognize him. Yeah, he's one of those character actors. It's very unique.
I think he was like a sports guy or wrestler or something that became an actor. Or
that would make sense. Yeah.
Anyway, okay, I guess I'll give this up trying to find him. But is it Vinny Jones? Yeah, Vinny Jones. Actor, footballer. Yeah, he was in the Midnight Meat Train. X-Men Last Stand. Yeah. Okay. So I had a Coke. I had an open Coke. I was sitting at my computer, and there was a meeting with the director and him for some reason he was in, and the producer. I don't know. And I had an open Coke sitting there, and he was talking, and he walked over and he picked my Coke up and he just started drinking it and put it back. Like, it was so weird. Not even
Really?
acknowledging me. Yeah, it's just like the idea that you would pick up any random open Coke and start drinking from it was so weird.
That is
And it's
weird.
like, was he trying to be a dick or was he just
Distracted and didn't
dis-
really think of what he was
but who would
doing.
do that? Even if you're
Who would do that?
distracted, I would never drink. I'm like kind of a slob, and personally, but I would never drink out of an open cup from open
It,
can that's I don't even know the person, especially, or even if I knew the person, I would never just pick up their drink and drink out
no,
of
it
it.
was it was almost it almost could be interpreted that he dared you to say something.
Maybe, yeah, but it's like I'm
But
short. I'm not like a muscly guy, and I'm sitting in a chair. It's like there was maybe three people in the room that were working at their computers. His attention was not on me at all. It was on who he was talking to. It was just strange. It was really,
that is strange. Yeah, it does sound like he was kind of distracted,
but even
didn't really know
again,
what he was doing.
even if he was, it's still a weird thing to do. It
It
was
is.
very weird.
My
Anyway,
goodness.
that's my version of that story that you told. Yeah, maybe other ones will come up as we go. So okay, we're in the 90s now. We got uh what did we
Okay, let's please discuss Jacob's Ladder while we're fresh,
oh yes, for sure.
and let's talk about
Thank you.
that.
Yeah, Jacob's Ladder, one of my all-time favorite movies. I could see it up on your
Same here. Yep.
behind your head there.
Oh, yep. Yep.
Um uh who I know Bill Sturgeon worked on it. Who was it? Who was the head?
It's
Uh,
Gordon J. Smith,
Gordon Smith. Yeah,
and uh, I've read his book, so I'll tell you a little bit about how he got the movie.
he has a
So
book.
yeah, two of them, 2 volume books. It's great. Here, let me get it out. So
Oh
a
no
mess.
way. Huh.
Yeah.
And he was like an early pioneer of silicone appliances, right?
Yes, he's his contribution to special makeup effects is immense,
Hmm.
and so we do need to kind of uh, acknowledge that. And so I think let's start with Jacob's Ladder. So if you don't mind,
Go for it.
I'll kind of relate some of what I've read here
Yeah.
in his books. So Oliver, he worked with Oliver Stone on quite a few movies, Platoon,
Hmm.
Born on the Fourth of July, Nixon. So he was for a while there. He was like Oliver Stone's go-to man.
Hmm.
And so a production manager of Oliver Stone sent Gordon Smith the script. And so this is what's so interesting about Gordon Smith is that he's a really good um, makeup artist, but not, but he has almost like a specialized um, kind of I don't know. He's kind of like specialized in gore wounds or like just almost out of the kit kind of dressing of
Hmm.
actors. And so when he received the script, he loved it, but he realized, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do this
Hmm.
because he's not a sculptor.
Oh wow.
And so he was really worried because it's like scripts like this. It was written by Bruce Joel Rubin,
Right.
and who's a very impressive and very mystical guy.
Yeah.
If you
He's like a
listen to him,
Buddhist
yeah,
dude.
he's got some insights
Yep.
that are really interesting. But anyway, Gordon was kind of like, according to him, was kind of in a predicament. He has been given this gift of a script,
Hmm.
but he didn't feel like he was prepared to do it.
Hmm.
So he said he went off. His shop was in Toronto, and he went up for a walk. And he went in. Okay, this is so beautiful. He went into an art gallery, and just on a stroll. And in the back, he noticed that there was this 3 foot high sculpture of a nude woman, sculpted by this guy named Evan Penny.
Oh okay.
And that was a revelation and according to him, his salvation, because he was so impressed, rightly so, with the sculpture that Evan Penny did, that he realized that's the solution to this Jacob's Ladder problem. If I can get him to, if he can do this, I want to get him onto the show. And
Wow.
so he did. He called up Evan
Oh,
Penny.
I didn't
And can you
realize
imagine
that.
being a fine artist and then getting a call out of the blue from an effects
Yeah,
guy?
I thought Evan Penny was one of these effects guys that became a fine art sculptor.
No,
But
just the opposite.
oh, how
He's
weird.
he's a fine artist who went to school and everything.
Yeah, Evan
Who
Penny's known for, if people don't know, he's kind of like, I think, wasn't he the first guy to do these giant realistic figures
no,
and stuff?
Ron Mueck
Oh,
was.
Ron Mueck. That's right. I'm
And
getting him
then Evan
confused.
Penny started doing them, and then Kazu did
Yeah.
some, but that's not to take away from Evan Penny because he's like a Mitch or somebody. He's where he's his anatomy, his realism is like phenomenally good,
Yeah.
and so he was a fine artist. Gets a call from Gordon Smith. Gordon sends him the screenplay and he agrees to do it. But Gordon also wanted him to find some of the best fine artists he knew to be part of the crew.
No way. What a
Isn't that
trip.
interesting?
Yeah.
And
I've never
then
heard of that
yeah,
going
so
on in a
so
film before.
Evan Penny brought a bunch, like a handful of people that he knew, that he trusted, that he admired. One was from Chicago and brought in to Toronto to work on it. And then this again shows Gordon Smith's correct instincts. He felt like he needed an effects guy from Hollywood to come in and just kind of balance out the crew a little bit because you have all this clique of effects special or
Mm-hmm.
fine artists, and it's like, well, we might be unbalanced here, so we brought in Bill Sturgeon.
Okay.
And so Bill was there as a kind of like a counterbalance to these guys, and they ended up and
So
so
Bill would know how to build everything. He knows
yes, and you
mechanics.
know,
He knows mold
mhm,
making. He knows he knows every aspect of it, which is why he like is a supervisor now.
yep,
So I can imagine him getting on that with a wide breadth of knowledge with these fine artists that are very specialized only in what they do, and him kind
yeah.
of like corralling them and telling them how to do it. I imagine.
That's like what an addition. And then you get
Yeah.
someone as cool as Bill.
Yeah. Bill's
And
amazing.
so and so Bill could make sure that they're not reinventing the wheel and like you
Right.
said, and introduce
Totally.
materials and whatnot. But the direction from Adrian Lyne, the director of Jacob's Ladder, was the best directors can direct the crew with simple directions.
Hmm.
And his was meat and chaos. Meat and chaos.
That's great.
And and so they use that to start thinking about how to design these demons. Because according to Bruce Joel Rubin, he wrote the demons to be more archetypal.
Okay.
But Adrian Lyne realized that he didn't quite have the budget to do that. How do you? I think I think the quote he said to Bruce Joel Rubin was, "Bruce, how many architects do I need to build hell?"
Hmm.
And so he's like he chose a different route and brought
What a
everything
great,
down
great
to earth.
choice, though. What a great choice
Yes.
because
So meat and chaos, thalidomide. Meat and chaos, Francis Bacon. Meat and chaos,
Joel Peter Witkin.
Joel Peter Witkin. Now this is interesting because I guess the script for Jacob's Ladder was sent out to a lot of effects shops. And so one of the shops was Rick Lazzarini. And Rick
Mm.
Lazzarini posted something in a Facebook group. I think it was the makeup effects group. And he said that he introduced the idea of Bruce Joel Rubin, that he gave them his book, the production crew, his book of, no, excuse me, of Joel Peter Witkin.
Mm.
And he said they never returned it.
Oh
But,
shit!
which
And
poor
and I'm
Rick.
sure they never gave Joel Peter Witkin credit either.
And so, yeah, probably not.
No.
And so that was Rick Lazzarini's contribution. And so that was kind of the parameters and the ingredients for which Gordon Smith and his crew could create those
Wow.
wonderful
Yeah. Yeah.
demons.
Yeah. This that movie probably deserves its own episode too. Don't you think?
Probably.
We should because that's
Should we stop now and maybe do a,
I'm just saying maybe not get too far in depth. Otherwise, we're going to spend, because I could easily spend an hour on that. You've seen the deleted scenes of the that are really
Chet, let's do a movie.
Yeah.
Let's do our own episode. Okay, yeah, because this would take an hour to do it justice.
But just to mention, the designs in that are there's another. I have to say, there's this one weird thing where there's the guy with no eyes, the doctor with the syringe.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, I think Bill was saying that was something he came up with. And then Cam DeLeon, my friend who did stuff for Tool, had a design where it was a doctor with no eyes like that, kind of like that, with a syringe holding it in his teeth. And really creepy drawing he did, I think for Tool. And he thought they ripped him off on Jacob's Ladder. And Bill would say so. Bill's a really good friend of mine. He would not lie to me about that. He's like, no, it was just one of the designs I did for the movie. And that's kind of an example of, two people that get the same idea kind of around the same time.
Yes. Yes. And that's right. It's like, yes.
But anyway, that
was a mortician's wax.
Was it?
Yeah, Gordon Smith did that on the set.
No way.
Out of the kit, and then so just mortician's wax that he painted just with basic makeup on top of it.
That's
and
so
it worked.
Cool. Yeah.
That's kind of what I think illustrates his strength, his resourcefulness.
Yeah.
And out of the kit kind of expertise. But you can't overpraise his fine artists who created those.
Yeah, a lot of the great shots were like just stockings over people's faces, the way that they overcranked the camera and the shaky head, and they did rip off Joel Peter Whitkin, and there's a couple shots that are like filmed versions of his photography, and the shaky head thing, that's Joel Peter Whitkin.
Yeah.
Where the head's shaking back and forth and blurry. And then later ripped off by Marilyn Manson and 9 Inch Nails for that Closer video. Those, Joel Peter Whitkin is like, he deserves an episode, because I think I don't know if you're into Joel Peter Whitkin, but I've been into his shit since the 80s, and I've always been such a huge fan of his. I'm a fan, and I have the utmost respect, but I'm so squeamish I have a hard time looking at his book. Yeah.
Stuff.
I've gotten,
but I admire it.
Yeah, I've gotten less squeamish as I've gotten more squeamish as I've gotten older. But back then, I was able to look at that stuff and I was able to take it in more easily. But I do kind of understand what you're saying, because I sort of feel that way too. But he was just
it was so unusual. You've never seen someone that could compose the way he did, utilizing real things. Yeah. So real people, real corpses, real deformities.
Yeah. And it wasn't photoshopped.
No.
It was like, there's that one of the dog with the cornucopia. Have you ever seen that one where like there's a dog and he's sort of looking at you, and the bottom part of his body is a open. Like he only has the front part, and there's like fruit and stuff spilling out.
Yeah.
And the dog is like, has this kind of relaxed look, and the dog is dead. I didn't realize, I remember first time I saw that picture, I was like, wow, it's a cool idea. He's photoshopped that. But no, it's like he positioned the eye and the head and the lighting to make that dog look alive.
Amazing.
So weird.
Like amazing. And it's also, he mildly disturbs me because I know he's capable of doing something that I couldn't. Not very many people can kind of do that with dead things. And I think he had a traumatic episode when he was young. A horrible episode. Yeah. Do you remember? It was like a car accident.
A head rolling towards him or something.
I don't know if it seems like that's what he said. And it's like, how does someone...
I don't know if that's true. I think that's not true, because there's a documentary on him that I found. It's this dude made a documentary, kickstarted it. I found him on Facebook. I found the documentary, and he never even sold them. He just will, like, if you contact him and email, he'll sell you one on DVD. So there's a Joel Peter Whitkin documentary, and I believe that the story the story I heard was he saw a car wreck and a head came rolling towards him when he was a little kid, and he kind
That's
of
what
like,
I heard or read. Yes.
yeah, and I think it's like that didn't happen exactly. It's not.
I
That's
hope not,
yeah, I know. I don't.
but it could have.
But I remember that was. I think that was debunked in his documentary. Anyway, we're getting too far off
Okay.
into Joe Peter Weekend, but he's amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of his stuff was used in Jacob's Ladder and beyond. So the '90s are when we did probably. I don't know. I don't. I wanted to say most of our work, but I mean I worked until past 2010. So
hmm
um, when did you get out of the business?
It was very gradual. I think the last movie I did was around 2010.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So when I moved to Utah, I'd still come out to LA to work on projects.
Right.
But I left LA around 2000 or 1999 or something like that. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
But the 90s were pretty much where that was the decade, I think, for you and I, really, as
Yeah.
far as
Yeah.
contributions.
Right. I just was going over because like Land of the Lost was the last movie I worked on in effects, which is
That
around
Spectral.
2009. And then I came
Yeah.
back and I did the troll for Hansel and Gretel at Spectral, that troll head. I don't know if you saw Mitch designed it.
It was wonderful.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
it was beautiful.
really
Yeah.
amazing mechanics by Marcus Tracking. Kind of went viral online of them testing
Yeah.
it.
Yep. I remember.
And
I've seen all that beautiful sculpt, Chet.
oh, thanks. It was fun.
Really,
It was fun.
really good.
It was yeah, it was a fun little gig.
What year was that? Was that after we worked on At the Mountains of Madness?
What year do we work on that?
2010. So that was the last.
That was
I think.
2010.
Yep.
Were you
Or
there
11.
Were you there when were you in the shop
Uh-huh.
when Tom Cruise
We
came by?
No.
Yeah. I was. He
I've
was
told you about why I wasn't in the shop, and we best not
yeah,
get
yeah,
into
right.
that.
Yeah.
But
But
no, I wasn't.
he was the nicest guy.
Oh,
I expected him to be, everyone thinks he's crazy, but he was so nice and down to earth. It was really
I've heard that about him. Yeah, I've heard that about him.
okay. Hansel and Gretel was maybe
Yep.
maybe it wasn't Hansel. Maybe 2020. Could I have worked on something anyway?
No, you know what it was? It was high. Oh, your something highness, something.
Oh, that was a different thing, Your Highness.
Your highness. Oh yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There was
maybe it
another
was
one
Hansel and
though.
Gretel,
There was
or was
another
it
one.
Okay,
There was another kind of like fairy tale movie, I
like
think.
that. Okay,
Because there was like a witch, these witch tree people.
was it the witches one? That there was a witch movie or something?
And I can't
Oh man,
remember. This is all a blur. But anyway, so we got it out around the same time, 2010-ish. So our prime years were the 90s,
yes.
but a lot of cool stuff happened in the first part of the 2000s, or the aughts as they call them, I guess.
I've got a list of some stuff. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't, what did you work on in the 90s?
So I was hired to work on Mortal Kombat. So that's what brought me out to Los Angeles.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I worked on Mortal Kombat.
What did you do on that?
Goro.
Yeah, that was amazing.
So
That thing was Steve Johnson working for you worked.
No, it was for ADI.
Oh, ADI.
Coming
That's
out.
right. ADI.
And so it was Mortal Kombat, and then Jumanji. I think I worked on the Santa Claus, and I worked on what else did I work on? Tremors 2.
Okay.
And then I went to work for Rob Bottin. So, but Tom and Alec, yeah,
You worked on Warriors of Virtue.
Warriors of Virtue, but Tom and Alec, I think we need to acknowledge, because they're kind of like the '90s effect shop, and
Yeah,
they started
well,
out with Tremors and stuff.
think about the 90s effects shops that were it was at the 90s were like when these new shops started coming in that were people that worked for the main guys back in the 80s, like
Yeah.
Rick, Rob, and Stan Winston. So you had
Yep.
you had ADI, you had Tony started Alterian. That was
Steve Johnson,
Steve Johnson,
Can Be.
Can Be.
Oh, wait. Yeah, they kind of worked for yeah, Shostrom and Savini before they started their
Yeah,
own show.
yeah, right. And Optic Nerve was like the 90s, maybe.
Optic Nerve was the 90s because they did that. Oh man, they did the Night of the Living Dead remake that Tom Savini directed, and
Oh
those are some
yeah,
of my
those zombies
favorite
are great.
zombies of all time.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
definitely yeah the peak zombies. Other than you know Walking Dead
yeah,
zombies are pretty amazing.
they are.
But
And Matthew, so you mentioned Matthew Mungle. There was like Todd Masters, Bart Mixon, and
yep,
Earl
Todd
Ellis had
Masters.
their own shop. Rick Lazzarini, Andrew Clement, Brian Pennicus, Lance and David Anderson,
Oh
Rob and
yeah,
Barney Berman, and John Beekler, or some to
yeah,
name a few.
yeah. So that's a lot of shops.
A lot of
Think about it
shops.
like in the 80s when there was there was a lot less shops, probably getting more work. Um, uh, and the 90s was the time when it started. Remember a period in the 90s when they would take jobs and divide them up between different shops? Like that became a common thing in the 90s, I think. I think you talking about Starman in the 80s, that was pretty
Yeah.
rare to and the thing did that with Stan Rob farming that dog puppet out to Stan's. But generally a
Yeah.
shop would kind of do everything.
Yeah, like Army of Darkness
Army
was one of those
yeah.
where they farmed out a couple multiple shops.
Like K&B did stuff for that, and then we did stuff for that too.
Yep.
Altarian and Freaked was another one I worked on.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was
that's right.
Steve's Johnson did those amazing. His shop did those amazing Big Daddy Roth type monsters.
Those are really cool.
Those are some probably the best, my favorite things that shop ever did. And then
Yeah.
Screaming Mad George did stuff on it. Altarian, we did stuff on it. I think those were the three shops that worked on it, unless I'm missing one. But I remember that
That's
being a
interesting
thing
because
for a while.
that wasn't that big of a budget. So I'm kind of surprised that that
Yeah,
movie
it was
it must
like
have all gone to the effects shops. Effects.
yeah, it was a weird. It was a. It seemed like for a while that was the thing to do, to get different shops for different effects. Almost like it
Hmm.
was a trend amongst productions for some reason.
Hmm.
Like there wasn't
Hmm.
a lot of logic to it. Um, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, Men in Black was that way.
Oh, who else worked on Men in Black?
Rick was so overwhelmed. The scale of the effects were so big that Rick had Bart and Earl
Oh, that's
do some
right.
effects. KMB did some
That's
effects,
right. That's right.
and Steve Johnson did a couple.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick even called Rob Bottin
Oh,
to.
wow.
Now, can you imagine if Rob joined that bunch? What that it couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And Rob, I think, knew it, so he turned it down.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Why? I
and
wonder why.
I think because that's not conducive to his process.
Yeah.
He's such a
He's not a team
yeah.
player.
He's too much of an alpha. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I get it. He's got a vision. He's got a.
But Rick was really cool. I mean, yeah, that Men in Black was very interesting. So that was
Yeah.
one of the biggest movies I ever worked on.
You
And
worked on
that
the
was my
first one
and that was yeah, that was my
and the
first
second
job
one
for Rick. And
because
I
I
worked
worked
on
on
the
the
second
second
one.
one with you.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, Man in Black was amazing. The stuff they did on that was so good.
Hmm.
On all three of them actually. But that's some amazing work. What did you do on Man in Black One?
I worked on the some Edgar designs, the final Edgar
Oh,
bug
that's right. You did those
design.
amazing.
I did the stretched head design
Yeah, that was
and
incredible.
sculpted it, and Kazu cast it up and applied it, and Gino Acevedo painted it, and then the wonderful hair team and steamer. That was probably the most fun effect I did on that.
Yeah.
But Men in Black was really an amazing movie because Kazuhiro, that was his first introduction, and
Oh, was
Carlos
it?
Wante, yeah, and Carlos Wante would kind of that was the first movie that he really got to chew on, and he kind of established the look of a lot of those
That's someone
designs.
who
And
I want to get on the podcast, Carlos, because
yeah,
he's
yeah,
legendary. He's so
he
great.
is. And but yeah, Men in Black was heaven.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah, I
It was
bet.
heaven. Um, saw, Steven Spielberg drop by the shop one day, and Barry, well, Barry Sonnenfeld's a character,
Oh
but he's
yeah.
kind of one of those guys that didn't. He's like the opposite of maybe a. Well, he's kind of similar to John Landis in a way, but he's John Landis without the film effects,
Yeah. Non effects
knowledge.
nerd. Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of this was really new to Sonnenfeld, but I think he's a good director.
Oh
So
yeah.
he made it work.
Yeah, he's done
So
some amazing films. Um so okay, yeah. We got Men in Black. I Darkman was the first, or okay. There's this movie called Blood Salvage. One thing I was noticing, looking through my credits of the '90s, was that I worked on a lot of terrible movies. You worked on better quality movies than I did, for sure, because I worked on some crap, like this one called Blood Salvage.
what was that about? I'd never heard of that.
It was like they were keeping people alive, uh, and cutting their selling their parts, selling
Hmm.
their. It was like some hillbillies had people in a barn. It was really bad, and they didn't shoot anything. We made the coolest props. All these dead bodies that were being kept alive, with like cow, you know cow a window. You never seen those holes in cows' sides where they at farms they have like a hole in their side so you can kind of see what's going on in there. Have you ever seen that before? Like in their stomachs?
That sounds
It's
horrible.
horrible. It's horrible. They do
I,
that though.
oh
It's so
man.
horrible. Anyway, we did that like on a dead woman's body. There was like a little kid. It was pretty horrific, actually, now that I think about it.
And they didn't. Why wouldn't they film that stuff?
I don't know. Because I finally saw the movie recently, and they didn't shoot anything. It was like in total darkness, and they had some shots where they used real people that looked terrible. It was a piece of shit. It was like
Man.
bottom of the barrel, as low as it gets. That's why you've never heard about it. But after that, that was like going into the 1990, and then after
And that
that,
was Alterian. That was the
yeah,
Tony.
yeah. So
Okay.
that was between the Blob and Darkman. So Darkman was the big movie that I started the '90s off with.
Tell me about that.
Darkman was amazing because I got to basically design, sculpt, paint the prosthetic makeup for Liam Neeson, and Liam Neeson was kind of a no name
Hmm.
back then. I don't think he'd
Hmm.
been in a lot of films, and he was cool. He was really great, actually, really, really great guy. He wasn't like a horror guy. I don't think. I don't. I think he's probably doing it just for the gig. But man, to wear all that makeup,
So he really wore it well and had a
yeah.
good attitude.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, good.
Especially
Because I
first,
really I like him as an actor. I do.
he's super cool,
Yeah.
super great dude, and I can't believe he wore that. That was a lot of makeup, a lot of days.
It was an interesting makeup because you had an exposed scalp,
Mm-hmm.
you had some teeth on top of his own
Yeah,
lips, and then so it
dental
was a very
acrylic.
layered
Yeah,
makeup.
yeah.
And that was your idea as
No,
far as
no, 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 no. I probably never would have. I mean, that's what they wanted was no lips, but it doesn't make sense that he can't talk that he talks without lips. But this is
yeah.
the design. I worked from a maquette that Tony did, so I
Okay.
don't know if this was in the script or it was Tony's design or what. But it was the maquette was he just. I don't even think he did it over someone's head. It was just a sculpture, and it was
Mm.
way cut in. It was like you could not do this makeup on a person. It was way too sunken in.
Mhm.
But it was the basic design was, skeleton teeth, and half the head is kind of like human on the it's flesh, not human, but regular flesh, and then everything else is burned.
Yeah.
So I had
How did you do that? Did you sculpt a how did you sculpt it? And did you have teeth that were like acrylic teeth or something that
yeah,
you put on
yeah,
the face cast and
yeah,
then put the clay around?
yeah. It was pretty simple. It was like acrylic, dental acrylic teeth, upper and lower, that glued onto his face, and sculpted over, basically, you know, so the teeth went on first. And then,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember we talked about this on another earlier episode that it was like, ooh, we get to do a overlapping Dick Smith overlapping makeup. And so we, of course, like, did like, I think 2 pieces for the back of the head and 1 piece for the unburnt part and a forehead for the burned side, and then a facial piece for the other burned side, and then another, jaw piece here, and then a neck piece. It was just like way overdone, way broken down, way too much. But we were so excited. So
You know what, Chad? It looked cool.
yeah,
So I think it was worth it.
yeah.
How long did it take to apply?
I think it was like 3.5 hours.
Well, that's
maybe.
not bad.
No, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah,
It went faster as we went along because Tony would take one side and I would take the other side, and I would do the side without the burn. The regular fleshy side, and it had punched hair and stuff, like
I thought it looked
shaved
great.
hair, and it looked pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good.
Liam Neeson has good bone structure too, though. He's got deep set eyes and
his
kind of
nose was his nose though was kind of big though, because I remember that.
Oh yeah, because you had to. Oh
yeah, because it was he wanted in the design. I think he wanted like more of a Phantom of the Opera nose, but I think they probably had to change it because
he does have a larger nose.
Yeah. But I'll tell you a funny thing about that. One funny little story is I remember. One of the first days, I remember the first day we did the makeup was kind of cool because no one the production hadn't seen it. It hadn't been on set yet. And we did that the first day, and it was in this bedroom set. I think it's where he's confronting one of the gangster guys and killing him. I think maybe where he throws him out the window. I forget which one, but it was like kind of a dark, smoky room, and he walked on set. And everybody just went silent when he came in because they were just tripping out because it looked so good. It looked like so cool, and it was
that had to feel
19
so
or
cool.
20 or something. For me, it was just like wow, So,
man,
yeah, it was a cool moment because everyone was just like, and everyone loved it. But I'll tell you what,
Sam Raimi. I mean, how is he to work for?
Oh, he's super cool, super great. Funny, kind of like you would imagine if you've, he's like his movie. And he's another one of these effects guys that made it. He's like us, like he's a nerd for makeup effects and genre and horror type movies.
Yeah.
People see him now as like the Spider-Man guy, but he's like Guillermo. He's like John Landis. He's like Frank Darabont. These guys that like love movies and love horror film and weird movies and effects and stuff. They're like one of us nerds who made it into the big time,
Well, Evil Dead 1 and 2 practically created its own like genre.
Yeah,
particularly
right.
Evil Dead 2.
Yeah.
That combination of wacky, goofy, horror.
Yeah. Peter Jackson's another one. He's another
Peter Jackson. Yep.
effects nerd who made it.
Yep.
I don't say that critical. I'm saying I'm an effects nerd. You're an effects nerd. I'm saying that
Monster
in a positive
Kids.
way. Monster Kids.
Yeah,
yes.
we're Monster Kids.
Yeah, Monster Kids that made it. But I'll tell you one other thing about Darkman was I remember, I forget what, it was like early on when we were just kind of establishing how to do the makeup. One day there was a blend onto the nose on the fleshy side. There was a prosthetic. Oh, I know what it was. It went like, anyway, it doesn't matter. But I had to blend that piece onto the nose, onto the flesh side of the nose. And I dipped my 355. We glued on 355. And I was trying to get the edge down and it kept coming up. And I'm like pushing and pushing. And I realized I had a bottle of glycerin out. And I used glycerin instead of 355. And it's like glycerin is basically the opposite of 355. It's like oily. It's not a glue. It's like an oil, like mineral oil. And I was like, oh shit. and I didn't want to say anything because Tony's doing the other side of the makeup, and it's like right there, you could see it. And so what I
Wait
ended
a minute. What did you realize you were using glycerin at the moment?
it was just one glue. I glued the whole thing down, and there was one edge that I had to glue down, and I used
and that's a critical edge.
this one critical edge, and I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? I got to think fast. So I ended up soaking it with alcohol and dabbing all of the, just kind of like dabbing it out, and then that worked well enough. Kind of screwed it up, but you couldn't really see it.
That was a good solution.
So scary.
Some people have reactions to glycerin. It's
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can't remember who it was, but I know they've reacted to it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of chemicals and effects.
But you guys also in Darkman, wasn't there like a bubbling effect?
Yeah, gelatin.
How did you guys do that? Was that bladders?
Yeah, it was like gelatin appliances with channels sculpted in, So it was kind of like, it wasn't really bladders. It was like there were channels sculpted in the positive. Yeah, somehow. I think Evan Brainerd, Evan Brainerd?
Mm-hmm.
He was, I think he was in charge of that. The melty and the bubbly stuff.
I liked it.
It was cool.
So Evan Brainerd designed that effect, or did you guys? How did that work?
He did. I wasn't involved in any of that part of it. I was just mainly did his makeup. I think there may have been some other side stuff I did. There was a puppet. There was a Darkman torso, from the torso up puppet that was made and never used. It was for the scene where he freaks out and he opens his mouth and the camera goes into his mouth.
Oh, cool.
So it was a whole animatronic.
Oh,
fully with the facial Waldo system. Remember those?
Yeah.
It was like, I forget whoever designed that came in to like rig that to where you put like tabs on your face, and it was supposed to it didn't work that well though. Was it Rick
Lazzarini?
Maybe it was Rick Lazzarini.
Because he had a kind of the Waldo effect.
Yeah.
He was the first person I saw that kind of.
I think it was, or he
showed that.
I could be wrong, but I remember him or somebody coming in and basically the idea was there were some kind of sensors you would glue onto the puppeteer's face so that when they made the expressions, it would translate to the puppet. And there was these arms that puppeteered the arms as well. So you'd kind of wear this whole system and you would be the puppet, but it didn't quite work that well. It was just like this expensive, elaborate thing that never got used. I don't think it was filmed. I don't think it was filmed. I think it was.
So there are no behind the scenes, deleted scenes with it or anything.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Too bad.
But anyway, that was kind of a cool thing. Remember the finger where the guy he puts his finger and Liam just breaks his fingers
and he roars and then and what's her name screams.
Yeah, that's such a great shot.
That was great.
Oh, one more thing. Now, do we talk about this before? There's the first Spider-Man movie Sam directed has these. Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe we talked about this then. There's like two scenes that are like right out of Darkman that I've never heard anyone talk about. I thought I talked about it with you.
No, what were they?
There was the scene at the end where the Willem Dafoe was like, you're like me, you're just like me or whatever. That was in Darkman too with the bad guy. He does the whole. It's like the dialogue is almost exactly the same if you watch both those movies. And then there's a scene where Frances McDormand is standing there and she dissolves and it turns into her wearing the black clothing in a graveyard behind her. And they do that in Spider-Man 2, I think.
Oh.
And I've never heard anybody talk about this, but it's like totally lifted from Darkman.
So Raimi probably kind of on the spot or something improvised.
He just ripped himself off. I mean, not in a. He knew that was a cool thing he used in this movie that nobody saw hardly compared to Spider-Man. Yeah, let's use it in a movie that people will actually see.
Well, I remember seeing Darkman in the theater and really enjoying it and excited. I was excited for Sam Raimi
Oh
because
yeah,
it
me
was, yeah, it
too.
was right after Evil Dead 2.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I wanted to see him succeed because that movie was so exhilarating.
Yeah, and that was 80's, right? It's Evil Dead 2. I don't
Yes,
think we
it was
talked
the
about
80s.
that one much, but that one had
Yeah.
a ton of amazing effects. That was K&B,
Mhm.
right?
That
Or
and Mark
and Mark
Shostrom
Shostrom. Yep.
can be,
Oh,
yeah.
From Beyond. From
Oh,
Beyond is another one from I think that was from the 80's.
yeah, where various people contributed, shots contributed.
Shostrom worked on that, and
Hmm.
I think K&B, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know my From Beyond story, right? Where I had to destroy a Mark Shostrom suit.
No.
It was I'll try and
Oh,
tell
wait.
it quickly.
Okay.
It was I think Dr. Pretorius
The
is the
Pretorius, uh-huh.
it was the like later stage of that creature where he's big massive flesh, and there was this I was working on this movie in Italy called Transformations, and they had all of Mark Shostrom stuff from Beyond in our shop just stored, and I didn't do it, but well, yeah, I didn't do it. Mike Deek did it, but he had to do it. And so they're like, oh, this character in this Transformations was like a blood salvage type movie. Terrible. No one saw it. Piece of crap. Direct to video. So bad. Um, and there was a scene where the monster dies, and then the hero breaks out of the burning husk of this creature, and he lives at the end. That creature was the Pretorius suit, spray painted black and covered with nernies.
Oh,
It was a shame because it's like there was this beautifully painted, beautifully sculpted, cool ass suit, and we had to
yeah.
spray paint it black because they put us out there with no money, no supply, no nothing for the effect, and we just kind of had to. I don't know who made the executive decision, but I was just like, this is a shame.
Well, and I've heard stories that in some of the British effects guy, everything that Rick created for Greystoke was still over there and would occasionally uh show up in other productions,
Oh,
whether it was
really?
just, yeah. So, but if no one's ever going to see it, if it's in a shop, I don't know. It would be painful to paint over someone's
Well,
beautiful
Mark,
paint job.
yeah, Mark asked. I mean, I asked Mark about that when he was on the show, and he's like, "Yeah, they never sent it back to me. They were supposed to ship it back to him, all that stuff.
Oh, and that's why they didn't.
Maybe, or maybe they
Yeah.
didn't. That's why we had it because they never bothered shipping it back because they didn't really just didn't want to or didn't want to deal with it, or I don't know. Um, what about Batman and Robin? Did you work on that?
I did work on that.
Because I worked on that at Tony's.
Did you work on some of the frozen bodies?
Yeah, we had a bunch of
Yeah.
frozen bodies.
Yeah. So Rick had that show, and I worked on Mrs. Freeze, the Vendela, who was played by Vendela, the model and actress Vendela, and Mitch and I sculpted that.
Oh,
And so
right.
she was kind of suspended in a water tank, kind of
Yeah.
catatonic, and Mitch and I sculpted that, and that was a lot of fun um, because we had to kind of do a nude version.
I'm
And I remember,
sure Mitch loved that.
well, we both did.
Yeah, but Mitch used to
And
say,
everyone did because
Mi-
everyone kept coming over to our corner of the shop and just kind of watching us.
Mitch used to
And
always say that, like, I just want to sculpt naked ladies all day. Like, as a fine artist, he's like, that's all I'd want to do is just sculpt naked ladies.
and that was our opportunity. And I remember Rick was getting ready for Mighty Joe Young, and Dean Cundy was going to direct it.
Oh, wow.
And I remember he entered the shop, and of course, once you catch a glimpse of what Mitch and I are working on, he made a beeline right over to our section, just to kind of, waste some time staring at this sculpture we were doing of the nude model of Endla.
It looked
But
amazing. I remember seeing it in the shop. I
oh,
think it was hanging up or
yeah, it
something.
was fun, and we used a different kind of clay. It's probably one of my favorite clays ever. It was a sulfur based, kind of odd purplish colored clay, but
Really?
yeah, it wasn't Roma plastilina, and I can't remember what it was, but I absolutely loved it.
Huh.
And And then we all kind of all the shops kind of went non-sulfur,
To Chavant, yeah.
and then I never quite adapted well
Oh, really?
to NSP medium. And NSP soft, I remember ADI, that's what they were using on oh, may have been I Am Legend or whatever, but I could not stand NSP soft
Yeah, it was too
clay.
soft. It was way too soft.
Well, it was gummy and weird,
Gummy.
and but medium was a little better. And but oh, I still when I worked on Benjamin Buttons at Canham's, he only wanted to use white Roma plastilina,
Oh, wow.
and it felt so good to work with a
You know
sulfur-based
what?
clay again.
I haven't sculpted in sulfur clay since I started working at Rick's in 2000. I never went back to sulfur clay, and I went all in on Chavant NSP medium, and it was like that's what
Well,
everyone was using.
such a good detailing clay too, and that's
Yeah,
where guys like you and Kazu and Mitch and everyone, it really.
I'd be curious to try it again though. Roma.
Oh, I don't think I ever. I think I took a couple notches backwards with with non-sulfur clay, and I I never got back to the state or raised to the state I was with sulfur clay.
Hmm.
So I was a better sculptor when I had that clay.
Oh, interesting.
And try as I might, I still feel like, yeah, I can't get back to that state.
Do you
It was creamy, Chet, and so I could smooth it really well and work it, and it just magical. Although I kind of developed a slight allergic reaction to the sulfur
Hmm.
in it, so maybe it's for the best, but I never I never really truly liked NSP. I think I'm using Monster Clay right now on a piece, and it's really waxy.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any substitute for sulfur
Huh.
in clay, unless it's like wet clay, and then you could do some of the stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good alternative
Yeah.
to use. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. It's got me wanting to try it again. It's been so long.
smelly.
Yeah.
It's so
Rubbing your eyes and having your eyes burn.
oh man. But this purple clay, I'll have to try to remember what it was. It
That's
might
so
have even been
interesting.
something mixed that someone in the shop, whether it's Kazu or somebody, mixed for us. But it was oh perfect,
Yeah,
beautiful.
I remember at one point Kazu was mixing his own clay. He was experimenting with I think it was I don't know if it was Chavant medium and soft or Chavant hard and medium,
Mm,
but it was mixing the two together. It was like a whole process. It was interesting. I don't know
yeah.
I don't know that it changed the way he worked or anything, but I know he was trying that out for a while. Um, one of the 90s movies, probably one of the bigger 90s movies I worked on was Hocus Pocus, which
Oh yeah,
there,
Mick Garris.
yeah,
Yeah,
there wasn't a ton of stuff. There
Mike
was
Smithson was on that crew too, wasn't he? On your crew, he did that corpse on Doug Jones, didn't he?
no, I did that. That's
Oh,
what I did. I did Doug's makeup. I didn't apply it. I think Margaret Becerra applied it.
did you sculpt that?
Yeah, I sculpted that.
Chad, that was
Oh,
beautiful.
thanks.
Yeah, that was really good.
That was one of those shows too, where it was like, okay, there's one character, just make a cool corpse like zombie, and I was like, oh, that's right up my alley.
Well
Unfortunately,
done.
well, thanks, but unfortunately, I didn't. I wish I would have known what I knew once I got started working at Rick's and sat next to Mitch to learn all of his detailing techniques. And you know how he is; he shares freely with everyone. I
Yeah.
got so much better. I would have done such a better job on that sculpture if I would have known, like even how everyone at Rick's, all you guys would be refine the shapes,
Mm.
really refine the shapes and stuff. But I mean, it worked. It looked good.
You
Uh,
remember that show movie Magic? They
Yeah.
devoted a whole episode to, I think, Hocus Pocus or
Yeah, I
something,
think
the
I'm in
majority of it.
that. I think
And
I'm
there's,
in that.
yeah, probably, and there's a close-up of that appliance. And I remember this was before I was in the industry, and I just remember going, damn, that's really good.
Oh, cool.
So
That's
it
funny.
worked, Chad. It worked really well.
Yeah, I painted it. I sculpted the hands. I sculpted the a face. It was simple, kind of a simple design. But then we did a cat too. There was a mechanical cat because a
Oh
cat
yeah,
dies.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I still get SAG residuals for like 20 cents because
Really?
I puppeteered the cat one
Oh,
day, I think, on the set.
did you like working with Mick Garris? Can
I
you
don't
remember?
remember. I don't think I even met him. I think the guy who came in was the producer. It was a
Oh,
producer. He was a
was
really
it
nice
second
guy.
unit stuff or whatever? Or
I don't
hmm.
remember. I just remember one of the producers was a kind of the guy that came in and visited the shop. I don't remember Mick Garris ever doing it. Maybe he did.
But you went on set, didn't you, to puppeteer that cat?
Yeah, just I think one day. I
Oh,
didn't. And
okay.
then Margaret applied the makeup on Doug.
Hmm. Look great.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, but that was funny because that movie came out. It was a bomb. It was a dud. I didn't think it was great at the time, and it all these kids saw it, and now it's like got this. It's cult
Got this cult.
status,
Yep.
which is,
Yep.
I remember it coming out and being so disappointed that it was such a flop, and now it's like it's a lot of movies that I worked on back then that came out that did well are forgotten about, but I guess there's been a lot of like movies I guess I've worked on that were kind of ended up being cult movies, but disappointing in the beginning. The Blob was like that as well. It bombed when it came out. And
That surprise. That's interesting because it was really good. It just
yeah,
maybe had a
yeah.
poor marketing. Maybe the marketing on both of these just wasn't there. They didn't
Yeah,
promote it like they
Darkman.
should.
Darkman bombed when it
Darkman.
came out. And remember that one was marketed like crazy. It said, "Who is Darkman?" And it had I don't know if you
Oh,
remember that, but it had a silhouette of Liam in his outfit,
vaguely, yeah.
like a trench coat, that outfit he was wearing, and it said, "Who is Darkman?" And it was all over town in LA.
Why didn't it do better?
I don't
Was it
know.
maybe because Liam Neeson wasn't a well-known name at the time or something?
I
What do you
don't
think?
know.
Because
I don't
I
know.
remember enjoying that movie quite a bit.
Yeah, me too. I thought I thought it was kind of like the first real comic book style movie,
Yeah, exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like or superhero comic book kind of movies, shot
Mhm.
like a comic book. I guess Evil Dead was kind of like that, but that was like a horror movie. But that the idea was Darkman was Sam wanted to do The Shadow. Did you know that story? He was
Oh,
supposed to direct The Shadow for I think Universal Studios or something, and they wouldn't let him do it for some reason. So he's like, "Okay, I'll make my own character that's kind of like The Shadow," and came up with Darkman. I guess it's only like The Shadow in the sense that it's a guy in a kite,
well, they did make a movie of The Shadow
yeah,
starring Alec Baldwin,
yeah, yeah.
and I can't remember who did the makeup. Maybe Carl Fullerton, maybe I can't remember, but huh.
Interesting, but
He
okay.
hadn't he hadn't he didn't have what is it, the credibility yet or something
Yeah, I'm
in
not sure.
Hollywood
Yeah,
yet.
I'm not sure why he didn't get it, but they didn't. So he went and made his own version of it, which is probably a way cooler movie than he would have done on the Shadow. The Shadow's not like
Yeah,
Darkman was insane and cool,
The
weird.
Shadow was forgettable when I saw it, but Darkman I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So, what are you got any good other '90s movies that you worked on, or that
Um,
are just great '90s movies?
well, let's see. I've got on my list. There's like Edward
Oh
Scissorhands
yeah,
was
Stan
a
Winston,
fun
right?
one. Stan V. Neil, and I want to give a shout out to two people who were on set with that. They dealt with the hands and stuff of Edwards, and that's Andy Schoenberg and my friend John Price,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, that you've is friends with Adam Jones and stuff. And
Right.
so yeah, that one
Another
I thought
Utah
was
guy, right?
yep, yep, he's back here now. And but V. Neil, I love her application. She has a kind of she puts a stamp
Mm-hmm.
on makeups and her application. So that one, um, didn't she
Yeah.
work on
She had Beetlejuice.
Ed, Beetlejuice? Yeah, and what was it? Ed Wood.
Oh, Ed
The Ed Wood
Wood.
makeup Rick did was really good. Okay, that movie really a subtle makeup, but on top of a really dynamic and uh, wonderful performance by
Oh
what's
yeah.
his name that won the Oscar. My mind just went blank.
Landau,
Oh,
Martin
Martin
Landau.
Landau. There you go. So that's a beautiful
Oh man.
makeup.
Just to interject quickly, when I first went to work at Rick's, I Bill was showing me around, and he took me into the display room, and there was Kazu had just, I think he had just finished this Ed Wood Martin Landau dummy that was for display purposes only. It was like a realistic silicone figure,
Yeah, it's
and I could
beautiful.
not fucking believe it. I just could
Yeah,
not believe it. It was, I'd never seen anything at that quality, that level of realism before, because I was looking
yeah.
right at it.
Well, Mitch sculpted the head.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And then Kazu kind of like painted it
Put it
and
all
put the
together and painted
eyes in.
it.
You know
Oh,
how
the
hard it
eyes.
is to do
Yeah.
eyelashes and eyebrows and it looked
He,
so real that it was like, I remember looking at that face like this close, and it looked like a real person, and it totally was freaked me out. I just couldn't believe that anything could be done that well. Like I'd never seen anything done that well before in effects.
we're so lucky that we're able to see creations of that
Yeah.
caliber.
Yeah, the highest caliber that there
Because
is.
who else gets an opportunity to see something that skillfully made?
Right.
And I am so grateful I was able to bring my parents into and see that
Oh,
display
really?
room at Rick's. So they got to see all of that. And they didn't get to meet Rick. He wasn't in the shop at the time, but I was so happy they got to be to see that kind of craft, that
Yeah.
art,
Yeah,
that
cuz
kind of art.
that's
Because
not many people in the world get to see something like that, really,
yeah,
except on a movie screen.
yep. And like you said, to see it in person and to be able to get up close and just see the exquisite detail
Yeah.
is exhilarating.
And it
It's
was
just
and it was because it had to be made to be viewed in person. It was not for a film. It had to be perfect. And
yeah.
you saw it.
Hmm.
You know what I'm talking about. It was
I do. It's
absolutely
beautiful.
perfect. There was nothing it was lacking. There was nothing like that was like, oh, if he could only, he didn't quite
Hmm.
get this. It was absolutely perfect. Unbelievable. Blew my mind.
Oh, I love
And
it.
then Kazu made the eyeballs, he would always make his own eyes, and
Yep.
they were just,
And yeah, Kazu, what I marveled at was how good he was with hair
yeah,
and handling hair
yeah,
and eyebrows and eyelashes and stuff. Oh,
yeah,
I really do miss being present to just take in
right.
that kind of quality because it really isn't something you see every day.
Yeah.
Um, and even though you and I are artists, and if we had a budget, we could probably, do our own stuff.
Hmm.
But when it's like a Rick shop or it's a movie with a budget, everything comes together to be able to produce something that wouldn't come about otherwise, and it almost becomes otherworldly
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
and
it's truly magical. Well,
magical.
let's get through the 90's because then we can get into the 2000s and talking about Rick and stuff, working at
Okay.
Rick's because there's a lot of interesting stuff there. Uh, I've gone through most of my list. I worked on, and I'm not just doing stuff I worked on, but also I'm trying to think of movies that just in the 90's existed that had effects. Stir of Echoes was
Oh,
90's. I think Beinke did a corpse for that, and I worked on that.
yeah. Did you?
Yeah, and that was
That's a
a
good movie. I like
yeah,
that
yeah,
movie.
yeah, and it was a cool effect too. Cabin Boy was another one,
Cabin Boy. I
which had
remember
all
that.
kinds of
Chris Elliott.
yeah, all kinds of effects. Another weird bomb movie that became sort of cult classic a little bit. Um, I've got a scar still. Probably can't.
I can see it.
That little dot.
Yeah, what happened?
That's because on this movie Ghost in the Machine, there was a dissolving body effect, and I think we made the body out of, I don't remember, but all I remember was that sulfuric acid was being pumped through tubes by
Whoa.
us. Someone had this
Whoa.
idea, which is scary. And I think it was supposed to melt. I think it was styrofoam. We had stuff cast in styrofoam and the acid. Or no, because acetone melts styrofoam. It was, I don't remember what the effect was, but it was some kind of acid. And the scary thing is, we pumped it through. They were shooting this melting body sequence. Me and Vance Hartwell was there on set, and Tony, that I remember. We're pumping these syringes, acid, and a splash got on my arm and burned my arm. Like it's like 2 or 3 little dots all over my arm. And we're like, oh shit, that burns. Maybe we should wear some eye coverings.
That could have blinded you. Oh my.
It's not done yet. So we put on these shields, these plastic shields, went to go, like the kind of the clear shields, splash shields. We go to do the effect the next time. Boom, shot right. It would have hit me in the eye if I didn't have that thing on. So it was like, it was just so stupid that we're sitting there pumping acid through tubing without any eye protection. It was so crazy. It was just one of those
Chet, that
lucky
was
break. I've had so many things that almost killed me or blinded me, or
for dumb effects movie.
Or for just in my life. I honestly feel like I have some kind of guardian angel, because I've had so many things where it's like, oh, you should have died there, or you could have been blind there, and I just missed it. I'm not even kidding. I feel like I have some kind of protection of some sort.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff I've done when I was a kid was so stupid. But anyway, that was pretty good. Pretty crazy experience. Mom and Dad Save the World was another huge,
real quick, Chet. What did your skin do? Just real quick. When the acid hit it, how deep did it go? What did it do? Did it bleed? What happened?
That's a good question. I think it was kind of like a blister. Like just the first layer of skin. It wasn't like I just wiped it right off, and it wasn't like I had to go to the nurse or anything, or
it's not like it was burrowing
like Alien.
Like Alien.
Yeah, maybe it was a weaker acid. I don't. Maybe it wasn't I thought it was sulfuric acid, but So
Mom and Dad.
Do you remember that movie? That was like another movie. Huge effects show. John Lovitz was in it. I remember I did a bald makeup on John Lovitz.
I barely remember that.
It was but it was a huge effects movie that bombed. I'm telling you, all the stuff at Alteria just bombed when it came out. Warriors of Virtue bombed. But we did these fish people. That's where I first met Moto and Hiroshi Katagiri. They were doing mushroom people. Or wait, that was Super Mario Brothers. That was Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
Because there was a Super Mario Brothers movie in the 90s. I don't know if it ever happened or...
No, it did.
It did? But it was like a bad movie, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, Hiroshi and Moto did these incredible mushroom sculptures, like mushroom monsters. They were so good. It was another level of sculpting I hadn't really seen before.
Wow.
Especially Moto's stuff. It was just like beautiful designs. Amazing.
Yeah. The first sculpture I saw Moto's was at Rob's, and it was a monkey sculpture he did for what was going to be like a pandemic movie. But it turned into Outbreak. But this was a different one. I think maybe even Ridley Scott might have been involved. But I was just marveling at that monkey sculpture. And
yeah, he was great. He was so
just
great.
Amazing artist. Yeah.
Taken way too young.
Oh. I can't even think about it too much.
I
It's really
know. I
upsetting.
know.
He and Matt and so
I
many.
know. I know. Terrible, terrible losses. But okay, so yeah, Mom and Dad Saved the World. I did this rat. There's a rat puppet. I painted that. But it was so big. It was just funny. There were these movies that just kind of sucked. They came out and they were kind of bad, but they were huge epic effects films that people don't even know about.
We were taking it for granted at the time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
I know I was.
Absolutely. So those are, I know we're probably missing some. Do you have any other 90s effects movies that, let me tell you, it's
Oh
hard
yeah.
to come up with a list when you go and search on Google. There's not any good lists of 90s effects movies.
Um, you and I had talked about Seven before, and Rick did
Is
Nutty
it?
Professor, and let's real quick. I just want to mention Jurassic Park
Oh, that's right. Jurassic Park, the one that,
because that's what I have here highlighted as groundbreaking for obvious reasons. But I do want to give a shout out again to Joey Orozco, Mike Tursick, who just passed away, and Crash McCreary. So that's one of those movies that it was just amazing and kind of changed the whole paradigm of visual effects.
well, I mean, that was the movie that came out and all of us went, oh shit, we're going to lose our jobs
Yep,
because of the CGI
that
stuff.
CG.
But the,
But Stan's work was just so good.
yeah, it was amazing and
Yeah.
huge. They were making like giant,
Oh,
whoa, Mighty Joe Young. We
yeah.
miss Mighty Joe Young. And
That almost is we could almost do like an ape
yeah,
uh,
I know.
episode. But
So,
Mighty Joe Young was a blast to work on,
oh, you
and
worked on that?
uh-huh. Yep.
Oh, yeah, you sculpted the hands, right?
Sculpted the hands of the full scale. Uh, Mitch did the hands for the suit, and I did the baby hands, and I did like the chest for the suit, and yeah. But that was amazing because we did create a full to scale Joe that on
Right.
all fours was 14 feet high,
Insane.
and ah oh
Crazy.
just just beautiful, a beautiful time to be alive, to be able to see that quality of
Right.
work. Truly.
Yeah.
And I think I have kind of mixed feelings about the movie itself. Maybe the script was lacking something.
I don't really even remember the movie, to be honest.
Yeah, but Joe was wonderful, and Charlize Theron was wonderful, and yeah. So that was a blast to work on. I do kind of think maybe now is a good time to mention uh, Gordon Smith's contribution to gel-filled silicone appliances.
Okay.
And so I remember the
Now
first,
we're going to get kind of getting into late, we're getting into the 2000s now, right?
no. This was because I remember showing Craig Reardon a photograph of Legends of the Fall. There's an old age Native American makeup that was all silicone.
Really?
Yeah, and all the makeups on that were silicone.
Gordon did
And
this?
yes, and
Wow.
I showed that to Craig Reardon, and I felt bad afterwards because he just kind of drooped and he was really discouraged. He says, I can't I see something like that and I can't compete that. I can't do that. And then I felt bad because I made him feel bad. We were both kind of marveling at
Right.
what Gordon had done. And then he went on to do Alive, and he did some great urethane bodies and another silicone makeup on Ethan Hawke, but it wasn't gel filled just yet. And
Okay.
then
So,
he pioneered that, which
okay.
is
So
invaluable.
first, I was going to mention this too. Um, the 90s are when silicone became very common with molds, even too.
That's
Molding
right.
and, but fake bodies and stuff were starting to be used at silicone. Like prior to the 90s, it was more like polyfoams or foam latex or latex polyfoam, whatever. Non translucent stuff. For translucent things, it was like I think we talked.
Gelatin,
Yeah, there was gelatin, which
Elvasite.
yeah, Elvasite and urethanes. But we
Mhm.
talked about they're very difficult to paint. But silicone is the standard now of for any kind of realistic
Yeah.
body, and that started in the 90s, I think, or at least it
Well,
was widely used. Everyone was doing it in the 90s, and it's still that way, you know?
ADI was one of the first to kind of fully kind of embrace casting up bodies in silicone.
Hmm.
And so, do you remember Wolf, the Mike Nichols movie with Jack Nicholson
Yeah.
in it?
Hmm.
So, ADI did two of the best change-o heads. They did these heads of Jack Nicholson and James Spader that were kind of like these werewolf heads, kind of in between, but they could roar and their mouths and could spread and open really wide, wider than normal.
Hmm.
And they use these puppet heads when there is a fight scene at the end. But those are silicone. And I remember there's a picture of the Jack Nicholson silicone puppet head on the cover of Fangoria.
Hmm.
And me and a friend and I were just going, what is this? Is that real or not? Because the silicone
Hmm.
really threw you off. You can kind of, we could
You
tell
could
that there
see
was
the
something
hairs
different.
go, it's like translucency
Yeah.
when the hairs are punched in. And yeah.
And so I was so impressed, and those still look amazing. Those puppet heads that ADI did. So yeah, silicone, but appliances was a different matter
Yeah.
altogether.
Right.
That
And I
that was
remember people were experimenting with, like, everyone was trying to get foam. Okay. Foam for prosthetics. For people who don't know, that the standard was foam latex since the 30s, I think.
30s.
It's like
Hmm.
that was just it was just a refinement of that same technology. And the problem with foam latex is like the best you could do was like Roland's foam latex, Roland Blanca Floor.
Blanca Four.
Just
Hmm.
he does the best foam
The best
latex.
foam. Yep.
Just he's known in the industry as the best foam guy. And this amazing softness, amazing edges that are easy to blend off, but it's always opaque and you have to anything you have to try and make look translucent like skin. You're faking it with paint over an opaque surface. So people were starting to experiment in the early 90s. I remember maybe in the late 80s, but with alternatives to that, like gelatin appliances, but they would fall off. There was not a way to get them to stick well. I think they were heavy. They didn't like move that well. But I remember people were experimenting with foamed gelatin. Remember foamed gelatin?
Yes,
Like
that's
people were
right.
like trying to do foam latex, but with gelatin.
Yeah.
And
I think maybe even Matthew Mungold may have done a foam gelatin makeup on James Woods,
oh, okay, yeah, it
old
sounds
age
familiar.
makeups.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that.
So that was like the precursor to this gel filled silicone prosthetics. And now gel filled silicone is the standard that foam latex used to be.
Hmm.
And it came in right. I mean, it came full into like widespread use, I think, when we were leaving. And I mean, it started earlier, but it was like now everything is pretty much
Hmm.
gel filled silicone because it has that translucency and movement too. But I don't think I ever put a gel filled. I think maybe one for some makeup test. I may have done something, but it's like I see people doing it now and I know what they're doing. I can tell what they're doing. It's like you glue it on like a foam piece, except it's heavy,
Uh-huh.
so it kind of like wants to droop. So you have to be careful about how you glue it on and then they leave the flashing around
Uh-huh.
and then they blend it, I think, with acetone or witch hazel or something. They blend the plastic off onto the skin after they glue the edge down and they kind of peel the flashing away.
Yeah.
But I never, it's like, I've never really done it. It's one of those things that technology's advanced that I don't have any experience with now. And so I feel like, Craig Reardon, it's in that way, like
I felt so bad, when I showed him that.
shame on you.
But they were really so yeah, what movie was so Gordon Smith started doing he did a Truman makeup on for a television show of President Truman. Then he was doing stuff for Oliver Stone, in which he Nixon makeup so experimenting with that. But excuse me, Dick Smith, because Gordon Smith was resistant to using foam latex, he never used it.
Hmm.
And he didn't like painting externally, but rather intrinsically. And he had developed that for Jacob's Ladder, and
Right.
Graveyard Shift is another one where I love that rat bat. But anyway, so it was because of his limitations, he went a different direction. And with Dick Smith's blessing, just said, I want to try to create a silicone appliance. And the key was the difficulty was just what was it? Gluing just raw silicone on, because it was
Right.
leaching and stuff, that it wouldn't stick.
Yeah, you could, in order
So
to
they had
get
to encapsulate it with a layer of skin, like either a latex or whatever, to get something that's gluable.
it had to be overly plasticized so that it would bend and flex, because
Yes,
silicone, kind of normal silicone, is
it's
not
stiff.
super. It's kind of stiff. So
In Alive, that was a stiff makeup on Ethan Hawke, so it wasn't gelled at all.
okay. Oh
So,
wow. Okay.
but
So yeah, it had to
yeah,
be
so
encapsulated like this highly plasticized silicone, sandwiched in between two layers of some kind of super thin plastic, like bald cap plastic,
exactly,
right?
yeah, exactly.
And he developed that
Hmm.
that whole like because I remember when it was, I remember it was like he had a system that he had developed that everyone was trying to learn, and it was
Hmm.
like bald cap plastic and an airbrush, and you airbrush it into the molds really thin
Yep.
on the positive and on the negative, and then you put them together and you injected this highly plasticized silicone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And it really is exactly like skin. It
Hmm.
feels just like skin, and it moves just like skin.
So we had on Men in Black, Kazi was experimenting with that for some neck appliances on the Edgar character,
Mm.
but for some of the facial appliances on Vincent D'Onofrio, he used gelatin. So this was
Oh.
just a one piece that you could kind of wrap around. So it was kind of an intermediate. It wasn't exactly a designed appliance for the face, but more of a heavy thing that he just glued onto the neck, and gel appliances were put on top. So we weren't quite there as far as utilizing the full
Right.
process of Gordon Smith, but shortly thereafter, it started happening. And
Did
yeah,
he like sell a system? Didn't he kind of sell a
he did.
system?
Hmm.
Okay, he sold the silicone and
I think so. I can't remember. It gets kind of convoluted, but I do know that he was kind of the pioneer that worked with the silicone companies to kind of uh, allow this new technique to happen, and it really was groundbreaking.
yeah.
So there was a definite paradigm shift with
Hmm.
that.
Do you remember that makeup that Steve Johnson's shop did with it was like that what was it? It was for something I know Spectral was bidding on.
Oh, was it I Am Legend?
Well, there was that. I did they do silicone on that? This I'm
Hmm.
talking about. It was like a guy with a big arm, and like he was in a
Oh, that
sling,
was
like
for the Hulk.
he couldn't
That was for
walk.
the
That's
Hulk.
right. Did you
Yeah,
see that make? I don't know if it was a makeup test I saw or they used it in the movie, but I
it was really
remember
neat.
the neck was moving totally realistic, and it was
Yeah,
silicone. It was like that gel filled silicone. It looked incredible.
yeah, yeah. So Steve would caught on. All the shops realized, of course, that
Everyone
this
was
was
trying to
really
do
neat
it.
stuff.
It was like all the different countries trying to get to the moon first.
Yeah, yeah. But we have to acknowledge Gordon Smith's contribution,
It's
man.
amazing.
And yeah, it is. It's amazing.
And now you have like, the Winston Churchill makeup, Kazu's Winston Churchill makeup, which
Azu,
is incredible.
well, we'll get into this.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make a point
Yes, keep going, keep going.
that in the 2000s, everything just went global.
Hmm.
But anyway, let me see real quick. Legends of the Fallen mentioned. What becomes her? Men in Black. A Devil's Advocate was a hell of a fun
Oh,
movie for me.
that's right. That was some of your, I think your
We talked
became,
about it.
yeah, we
Yeah.
became you became famous in the industry for your designs that you did for Rick. Those designs are some of the
Oh,
coolest,
that was
scariest,
that was
freakiest
fun.
demon makeups ever designed. And
That was a
I don't think
blast.
you hardly even saw them in the movie too.
No, it kind of went a different direction, but that's okay. That happens. They were just
Yeah.
kind of in concepts. Okay, let's see. What I wanted to mention was Deep Rising
Okay.
because this is kind of an important, sadly, this was the turn. So CG was already making itself known and
Hmm.
was impacting the industry. But the Deep Rising was where you could really see it clashing with like a visionary like Rob Bottin because I felt when I was watching Deep Rising, Rob lost the reins.
Hmm.
And so CGI was able to bowl over someone as visionary and powerful as a Rob Bottin. And from there on, a singular person, I think, lost some of their leverage on set.
Hmm.
And I sensed it on Deep Rising
Hmm.
because I saw some of the stuff in the shop they did, beautiful work, beautiful sculptures, but then you see it on screen and it's been transformed digitally and it's been diminished.
Hmm.
And so that movie, sadly, I wrote down is a casualty of CG, and that's Rob Bottin
Wow.
losing aesthetic control, which he did because it was not a Rob Bottin movie from that
Yeah.
point on.
Well, the thing
So
about
that was,
production loves CG because they can put off decisions
yep,
till the last minute and then have,
and do it in post
yeah,
or
do it in
whatever.
post, and which is,
Well,
never, not always a good idea.
and if let's stop and think about that for a minute. That is basically kind of a cheat because the beautiful thing about and it does really get down to money, but the beautiful thing about in-camera effects is that it forces you to be creative and problem solving in the moment.
Hmm.
And you've got all the elements together, the sets, the actors, whatever. And I can hardly stand to see any CG effect anymore. And I want to just see practical. And we talked about this.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was the fad. It was the fashion,
Right.
and Rob was falling out of fashion or whatever. And it was just let CG, let a lot of these problems be solved in post with CG.
Yeah.
And it's tragic.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that is, it's,
The Grinch was a one that I worked on for Rick. That was a huge production,
yeah, that's
a
where
big.
I came in at Rick's, and
That's right.
I was
Yep.
painting ears. I didn't do it.
Painting ears.
And
That's
then I got
right.
that opportunity like to sculpt.
On
Oh,
Planet of the Apes.
no, no, no. They were like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. I
oh,
was
you did
like,
the
I
mask.
did that terrible mask. They're like, okay, make a sculpture. Bill comes out to me,
Yeah.
it's supposed to look like a bad Who mask. So I had to make a sculpture that looked like a bad sculpture, and it was like, damn it! Like I was trying to prove myself so I could get it. I was like, I knew I belonged in the sculpture department, not in the paint department, but
And you're being given the task of sculpting something that's supposed to look
look bad. So if you succeed, it
that's like
looks
a
bad.
cursed
Yeah.
job. Oh my goodness.
It's like a sculpting job in hell that you get.
At
Uh
Rick Baker's, make it not that's too good. You can't.
yeah,
Oh man, that I'm so sorry.
but
Well, you made up for it on Planet of the Apes.
yeah, I got in on Planet of
Big
the
time.
Apes. I got it on
Yeah.
because I got to, that was the cool thing, is like he carried people over, and when they were starting it up, they just had whoever that could sculpt make
Yep.
maquettes. And then Rick liked my maquettes, so I all of a sudden I was in the sculpting department and I never left.
Yep. Rightly so. I'm so glad.
Yeah, me too. I was like, oh, made it. Yeah, what did you do on Grinch?
I I helped sculpt and design a lot of the Who's hair designs
Oh.
that we'd give to the hair department,
Oh, so
sculpt
you were
hair.
sculpting those maquettes, like hair on the
Yep.
maquettes, right?
Yeah, and kind of using them, and then the wonderful hair workers would take those and run with them from there. The only thing I did on the Grinch himself were the feet. So
Oh, really?
I sculpted his feet, and that was it. But a big movie. I
Yeah.
worked on it for about 4 months, And yeah, very, very cool. It was very cool to meet, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer and Jim Carrey.
How was
And
Jim Carrey?
very nice.
Really?
So so Eddie Yang and I think we just came out of his office one morning and it was perfect timing. So Eddie was holding a little Who appliance and we were talking or something and all of a sudden Bill uh was coming towards us with a guy and a young daughter, and it was Jim Carrey. And so he just brought us, and we shook his hand, and he pointed and laughed at Eddie's Who sculpture because he's an artist himself.
Yeah,
He
right.
sculpts and paints, so he was really taken by that. Very nice,
Hmm.
very very easy going. I know it's a different story with Kazu applying the makeup, and that's where I'm kind of conflicted. So something was going on there where Jim Carrey was difficult to work with on that, and
Hmm.
maybe he's claustrophobic. I don't know, but Rick had to talk to him, and it was traumatic for Kazu.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like, what the hell went on there? Because I like Jim Carrey, and he's an artist, and you'd think he would be more receptive to work with. It wasn't such an obstacle, but I
Right.
guess he was really difficult for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah. I don't know the behind the scenes, but I do remember one of the funniest things. I'm sure Kazu didn't think it was funny, but there was a time when Jim Carrey came in to do a makeup test.
Uh-huh.
You must have been there.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
So do you remember they wouldn't let Mitch, who sculpted it, go and see the makeup? Like Heidi, remember Heidi who worked at the front? She
She,
wouldn't.
w-
He was pissed because she could walk into cause like they gave you a badge that you could go
yeah.
around Jim Carrey or not, and they wouldn't give Mitch one, and so he couldn't see the makeup, and he was pissed because he sculpted it and he wanted to see it,
Yeah.
and so he turned on that Hollerin' CD. You remember the pig Hollerin'? He had a CD of like all these people in a pig Hollerin' contest. And he fucking turned it up so loud while Jim Carrey's Kazu's up in his makeup room doing the test, and he just blasted it, turned it up to 10. It went throughout the whole. It was so loud. Just these. I remember Kazu's sticking his head out the door, all like pissed, just shutting the door. But
Mitch always had just the right music cued for if he got triggered.
any
He was
occasion,
blasted.
any occasion.
So what happened after that? I don't.
I don't remember how it stopped. I imagine Bill probably had to come and tell him to turn the music down. I'm guessing, but I don't think
You
he
know,
got.
that's tragic. Why in the hell would they not let Mitch look at that? That's disrespectful. That really
Yeah,
is. That shouldn't have happened.
yeah. I agree. It was, and
Maybe it was Jim Carrey's idea. Who knows?
yeah. I don't know. It was, yeah. That Mitch was funny. I remember that one time that Heidi, the lady who ran the front office, she had parked behind. She parked people in, and everyone had to leave for lunch. And I think someone couldn't get out because of her, and or he couldn't get out. Maybe he couldn't get out. I thought he was kind of doing it for someone else, but I remember he got on the PA and that goes through the whole shop. He
Uh-huh.
got on the phone. He goes, "Heidi, move your car. Heidi, 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 move your car." And he did it until she went and ran out and moved her car. It was
Oh no. Oh no.
He was-
Heidi Holliker.
yeah.
I liked Heidi. I like, but I guess
I got along with her.
yeah.
I got along
I got
fine with
along with
Heidi,
her
but
and Mitch.
I know that Mitch did not necessarily get along with her.
Oh, some personalities just clash.
Yeah.
Oh,
There was
that's too bad.
another really funny thing he did that I can't think of too that was like that the hollering thing and the going on the PA. But man, there was so many amazing memories from that time. Just funny ass. Man. Okay. Anyway, so Planet of the Apes.
A movie in which I did not work on.
You didn't
And
work on it?
but I got a call, and this was my period when I was making some poor choices. So I got a call from Rick. This is when I lived in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
He left a message on my answering machine, and I called him, and I was working for a computer company doing stuff at the time, or working on my fine art. I can't remember, but
Mm-hmm.
I made a mistake in which, sometimes when you reflect on your life and you reflect upon some of your decisions, you go, what was I thinking?
Mm-hmm.
But I think I asked Bill if I could be compensated for like a hotel or something because I didn't have a place to stay. I ended up staying when I did come out. I ended up staying with my friend Chris's at his place. But I think I asked for something that was kind of a deal breaker,
Hmm.
and so I didn't work on that movie.
Oh, that's a bummer.
But it's okay. But sometimes we don't know why we do things, and maybe subconsciously I was going to sabotage the opportunity. I don't know. But I think it kind of strained Bill and I's relationship for a little while there.
Oh, wow.
And so I've always felt bad about it. I think I'm,
Bill, are you sure? I don't know that Bill has a
yeah,
strained relationship with
no, I
anybody.
know,
Bill
but
gets along with
I
everybody.
remember, it was my fault, but I remember I felt really bad. Something kind of went off.
Hmm.
And I think it's since gotten back is corrected, but I wasn't making the best decisions at that time. And
Maybe were
I
you
don't,
like thinking you wanted to get out of effects? Is that what it was?
yeah,
And you
I
want,
think I had
yeah.
already moved back to Utah, and I think I wanted to be close to family, and I think it was kind of hard for me to coexist. I made it happen, but I think some of my demands, at least I learned on Planet of the Apes. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, right.
I learned that if someone's going to do me the privilege of offering me work, then I shouldn't put such conditions on it because really, I mean, I shouldn't have. This was Planet of the Apes. This was
Right.
my friend Rick and Bill and Matt
Mm-hmm.
and all these, and so I sabotaged myself.
Oh.
And but I did go and I drove out there. I remember, and while the movie was going on, and I did just and I went out there and talked to Rick because I was a little nervous about how that may have affected my relationship with them. And I went and talked to him, and he was really cool,
Oh,
really
good.
nice. So I think it was clumsy on my part, but he's a he didn't. I hope he didn't use it. He didn't hold it against me.
Well, no, he hired
And
you back on Men in Black 2,
but
right?
I made mistakes on that too. There was a period where it was really hard for me to stay in LA on jobs past a certain point,
What was your
and
limit?
4 months.
Oh,
And I remember I started to get like, I gotta leave.
wow.
And it was a weird reaction. I
Yeah, I
don't know.
remember. I remember now. I remember you
It
were
happened
like,
on Men in Black 2, and it happened on Spider-Man, and I think it was I don't- I honestly don't know what to say about that. I was I was torn. I was conflicted. I was in a state of confliction as to
why? Do you know
what I was
why?
going to do.
Why did you? Was it more about not wanting to still work
It
in
was
effects?
it was hard for me to work in LA and not have my own place to live, I think. So I was staying with a friend, and he was
That's
very
reasonable.
generous, but it was I it was really hard to be at the mercy of someone else and
And
to sleep
you
on a
just didn't,
couch.
you didn't want to move to LA.
Well, I already had an apartment in Utah and didn't want to go back. So I was trying to have my cake and eat it too, work there, but not have to move there. And so it introduced a bunch of very
Yeah.
complicated, complicated states of mind for me.
But
And
clearly at that point, makeup effects wasn't first and foremost in your life at that point.
no,
You must
I was
have,
trying. I was trying to enter, I was trying to cultivate a fine art mentality, get
Right.
back into that because I am a trained fine artist
Yeah.
and I needed to explore that. And a lot of this was just maybe subconscious. I knew I had to find my voice in something.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was going on with also I just wanted to be close to family. So I had two opposing things. I was
Right.
at contradictory things pulling at me, and so I had to choose. But it was very bizarre. I very bizarre. I still and then the whole Rapotine thing. But we shouldn't get into this
Yeah.
because this is
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the psychology of Ryan Peterson late 90s 2000s. It's I don't even understand it. Okay, but let's see. Going on my list, we covered a lot.
Well, okay. Planet of the Apes. We should talk a little bit about that.
Yes,
That
okay,
was
because you worked on it, and I would like to hear your take on that.
yeah, it was really fun, really fun. But the movie I think is bad,
Oh my goodness, it was horrible.
bad.
I was perplexingly bad,
Yeah, yeah. It's like
but the stuff looked
why? Yeah, the
beautiful.
makeups are incredible though, and I had a great time. It was my first sculpting gig at Rick Baker's, and um, just I'd never been in an environment like that before, where it's like all the best people. There's always money for. There's not you're not like scrounging clay from somewhere else or like
Mhm.
scrounging anything. It's like they'll get you what you need to get the job done right, which was a nice change of pace from having worked at a lower end shop for so long and working at other
Yeah,
lower end
that's
kind of
right.
shops. I mean, you had that experience with, I'm sure, with Rob's and stuff, which is the same kind of shop where it was like, you know, at the, at Alterian, there was periods where you're like, there was money for projects, but there was times where you were like tearing down, uh, display pieces so you get the lumber to make something,
Oh my goodness,
there was some
yeah.
rough times there. But so it was definitely a different environment. And also I remember one thing about Rick's is like when I started working at Rick's, just in general, I remember being taken aback that it was like, this is an art studio. This is like an atelier. This is like a real, like you see pictures of old art studios where there's
Yeah.
plaster casts on the walls and sculpt, just like it was like a legitimate art studio. It wasn't like a special effects shop. At least the whole sculpting department was kind of like that. It felt
Hmm.
like you were in an art studio, a legitimate art studio, and all the talent around was inspiring. But Men in Black was great because I actually enjoyed. I only did background masks. I didn't do any main characters. I did some maquette design ideas for different characters,
Hmm.
which was fun because you just get to sculpt maquettes, and that's
Hmm.
super fun.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember.
but I just did like background chimps and I was so happy doing that because nobody was watching over my shoulder, you
And
know.
that, yeah, and that,
It
yes.
was
And
just
you were in because at the time, everyone was bidding for Planet of the Apes.
mm-hmm,
And it was exciting. And so when it finally happened and Rick got the job, you were in the center of the universe, the special makeup effects universe at that moment.
right.
So everything was focused on that movie because everyone's was fans of Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
All the shops wanted it. Rick got it,
All the
and there
effects people wanted to work on it.
everyone worked on, and there you were. And and I told you this before, but when I visited Rick to talk to him, he showed me some of the maquettes, and he was praising your maquette. So
Oh, that's cool.
this was your moment, Chad.
Yeah,
I
that
really believe that because this was your moment, and you excelled, and you were taking what you were learning from Mitch, and you were you expanding upon it.
yeah.
And I still remember seeing um, this orangutan makeup that you did, and the detail was exquisite.
Oh,
So
thanks.
you were in your element. This was your moment,
Yeah, it kind of
and I
was,
think, yeah,
which the funny thing, because that's right around the time where I'm like, I got to get out of the business. I want to be a
Oh,
fine artist. I was
you were
doing,
in conflict too, or
yeah,
were about to be.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
right around that time. Cause once I started working at sitting next to Mitch, he was very, we talked about this before. He was very like bitter about the industry and kind of the feeling of disrespect and we're not treated like artists and blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah.
Yeah.
Bitch's famous quote that he would always say, I always try and put my best foot forward and they step on it. um,
Well,
but
only people that weren't in the know, because he, yeah,
yeah. Right. But anyway,
we
it was like, he was, he kind of first put the bug in my ear that maybe things weren't as rosy as I thought they were. It's like I'd been through so much. I, through it with Alterian and all kinds of stuff prior to that. And I had this goal when I was 12 years old to be a makeup artist, and I got it. I got in there. And then after, 10 years of it or whatever, he starts to, it's not as exciting anymore. You've done kind of, especially when you're sculpting at Rick's, it's like, what more is there to do?
you're at the top then,
Yeah.
and
And
so it's like you've reached the top of the mountain and there's nowhere else to go, and it's kind of like sometimes people it's too much. A lot of times celebrities when they actors who finally reach star status, that plays with your head,
yeah.
and they
Well,
can't process it.
it doesn't make you happy like you think it's going to make, like you think if you
Exactly.
reach this goal, it's just everything's going to be fine for the rest of your life, and it's not the way it
And it's
works.
not. And I experienced a little bit of that too. And I was kind of, I didn't, I got to work at big shops. I never had to really earn my way up to them. So
Hmm.
I never experienced some of that. So to me, I was just kind of transplanted at ADI and then Rob and then Rick. And so it's
Right.
like I was ignorant and I was taking this stuff for granted because I just didn't know any better.
Right. Yeah. But
You
you
had
got,
been in the industry and you worked your way up. So
right.
you climbed that mountain, paid your dues, and you were there. You weren't ignorant because you had already been a veteran of the industry and were working your way up.
Hmm.
I was just kind of transplanted on top of the mountain, just like, oh, this is natural,
Yeah.
and it,
Right. Yeah. It's true.
and this is the way it's going to happen. And so
but
I was ignorant.
that happened because you were so good, though. That's the thing about, but it wasn't like a luck.
Timing.
It
It was
wasn't,
timing.
it wasn't just timing. It was also because, because I remember when you interviewed at Alterian. And I was like, I remember tell Tony, it's like, you have to get this guy because your stuff
Wow.
was so much better than it was some of the best work I'd ever seen. Like
No.
even back then, your sculpture was like, this guy's a freak. He's like one of those freaky freaks, like Frazetta or
Freakishly
something.
ignorant.
No, just like so
Oh, well,
naturally
that's
talented.
that. Well,
And I was so bummed that we couldn't keep you too, because I was like, I was kind of the art department head at Alterian, and I was like, looking back, I'm like, you were smart to do what you did, absolutely, like to go on and work at these bigger shops. It was like totally the right thing. I should have done it earlier, but
no, well, I think yours was what it was meant to be,
yeah,
and it would have been different had you not shined the way you did. So a lot of because you were still in formation, you were still
yeah,
growing as an artist. So I think what was so beautiful about your trajectory is you got to, as your final chapter in the effects industry, you got to acquire and learn techniques from the best.
yeah,
So Rick, Mitch, Kazu, Matt, all these people,
hmm,
it's like finally it would have been kind of tragic had you left the industry and did your own work and not experience
yeah.
that.
I wouldn't have been
So you
as good of
did,
a painter or
and
anything if I didn't do that. That's the
it was
thing.
meant to be. And
Yeah,
so you were still growing as an artist. And so luckily you reached the top, and then it was kind of like a springboard for you to get into fine art. And
right.
that I think it was such a beautiful trajectory, Chet. Mine was really bumpy and weird and odd. and it doesn't have that kind of flow, that narrative that yours has. And I think I attribute my weird career as just I needed to kind of earn my way to Rick's or something a
Hmm.
little.
Hmm. Well,
I took it for granted. I took
yeah.
Rob for granted. I took all of it for granted because I just didn't know any better.
Right. Yeah.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah,
I guess that's the maybe the flip side of being that good at such a young age and having that natural talent. You know, because it opened doors. You could have gotten a job anywhere
yeah.
because your stuff was you're like this guy from outside of the whole system that was doing this
Okay,
amazing sculpture, whether you want to say it or not. I'm saying it, and it's like it allowed you in, whereas other people had to start sweeping floors,
exactly.
stuff
Yeah,
like that. So,
yeah, yeah.
but that's like it's cool to miss out on sweeping the floors, but on the other hand, there's a benefit to working your way up too. You
There
know what I
is.
mean?
You don't take things for granted,
Right, right.
and there's a yeah, yeah, exactly.
So anyway, back to Planet of the Apes. It was fun. It was great. I didn't get, there was Mitch, there was Matt, there was Kazu. Those guys got the makeup jobs, and
Was Jim
Rick.
McPherson on that one? I think he was. Yeah, he
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was.
I
And Matt, Jim
The
McPherson, you.
makeup I wore was a Jim McPherson, the orangutan makeup, because I was in the movie.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And so that was a Jim McPherson sculpture that he had sculpted
yeah.
on Matt, and it fit my face because Matt didn't
Okay,
want to do it
yeah.
because he was smart. But like I said before, I thought I thought it was going to apply to my insurance and SAG, so that's why I did it. And then when I got there at the end of the day, they're like, "Oh no, we're giving you a voucher, so it doesn't go towards your hours." But
That's so lame.
yeah,
Well, did you get to see or get direction from Tim Burton or anything? Did he ever come by the shop?
yeah, he came by, but when he came by, it was with like a whole entourage of
Well,
like
that's not the same.
people from
Yeah.
McDonald's or Burger King or something. I remember
Oh
like
my
coming in
goodness.
for like the toys to, you know what I mean? It was like, it was very corporate. So it wasn't like with the Hellboy when Guillermo would come by. Guillermo would come and he would like talk to you and
Hmm.
individually. And
Yeah.
how it is when people that give a shit come in and it's a smaller production. But,
I
so
want to ask you something though, Chet.
yeah.
Did you feel, wasn't it probably um, just a wonderful feeling to see how you were growing as a sculptor on that show? To be able to utilize those skin texture techniques
Yeah.
and things,
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah,
Yeah, it was
it was,
cool.
it was great.
It was
Great
cool
work.
because when I got there, I had at Rick's, I was like, oh, I didn't even know this was possible. This level of,
Yeah.
and I was always a detail person too. I always liked that sort of thing. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that sculpture could be this good. Like I'd never seen it. So,
And you
um,
were doing it right there, real time, utilizing these techniques.
yeah, so I was
And
able
so
to,
you're watching yourself just
yeah,
graduate
yeah,
to another
yeah.
level.
I wanted it. I wanted to be able to do it. And I had all the people and everyone was like super open to teaching me. Um, so I was able to like implement it, and I had enough experience to where I wasn't just like starting as a sculptor. I had like a strong background in
You
sculpture.
were
I'd been
ready for
sculpting. Yeah.
this.
Yeah. So it was kind
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
the perfect time. So once they showed me how to do it, I could just do it because
Yep.
it was not like I had to learn how to hold a tool or anything or how the clay feels. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So I was just able, just like, and I just jumped up a level and was able to do it. It was super, yeah, fun and exciting. Uh, but it was so weird because again, I kind of took it for granted in a way too, because like I said, I was starting to form this idea that I wanted to get out and get into fine art, even
Yeah.
though I was having fun. It was still like, it was just beginning like, oh, maybe I should be a fine artist. And then I did that soft spot sculpture, or I did that painting on Planet of the Apes
Yeah.
set, that little painting.
And
What?
you were at Spectral though after Planet of the Apes. We were
Right.
working together, and that need to be a fine artist
At,
was really starting to
yeah, at
solidify.
that point, I was like driving paintings down at lunch to
Yes.
drop off to shows, and I was fully focused. Like I was
Because
at Spectral, I was like, I got to get out of, I was like going crazy working. At Rick's, I was just playing with the idea that maybe I could do it, you know?
Mm,
So I was just
yeah.
starting to
So the
think about
seed
it.
had been planted
Yeah.
simultaneously with being at the pinnacle of makeup effects.
And,
And when we worked together on what was it? I can't remember what we worked together, but you and I went to a Cannibal Flower art show.
oh, really?
You had a couple pieces, so
Okay.
I feel privileged because I was able to kind of observe you entering and really developing as a
That's
fine
funny.
artist.
That's so cool.
It was really cool. Yeah, I think it was X-Men 3, maybe. No, I can't remember, but it was at Cap Mike Elzaldi's
Yeah.
shop and
Spectral.
Spectral. But what was I going to say? Real quick, um, that feeling on Planet of the Apes of you just kind of taking the ball and rolling with it and just really blossoming as an artist. I saw Brian Eno say something that I thought was really apropos, and it just kind of was just what I needed. It was a term that I want to share with you
Mm,
because I love Brian Eno,
mm,
and he came up with a term for a group of people not just benefiting from each other's company. So it's like instead of one person genius, he says, see, what is it? Gosh, and I'm going to forget the name, sceniest or something like that, in which it's the scene that is the genius. So the
mm,
scene is Rick, you, Matt, Steve Wang, Mitch, Kazu, all these people that are together elevating a standard.
mm-hmm.
And so it's not just one person,
Right.
but the genius. And I've seen this in person where people I didn't think were quite I didn't see their potential, but just simply entering this room filled with all these highly talented people, that is a genius.
Right.
And it gets and you join and you become
Yeah. You become
one
part
with
of it.
that. Yes.
Yeah.
And so genius, I've always had a hard time with that word because I've seen for myself people just graduate rapidly with their skill.
Mm,
And and that's what something you and I are very fortunate to have experienced is that genius,
mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know, being in
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
shop at Rick's and seeing that and learning from it and growing and all of us just learning from one another and elevating an art form.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
It's definitely something I still like probably don't fully appreciate it until just
yeah,
talking about it now. It's like thinking about those times where you've got like everyone working at the highest level, even the mold department. They're doing these molds that uh, Jim McLaughlin,
Jim McLaughlin.
McLaughlin, is it?
Yeah, was head of the mold department. Yep.
And
And then
Rob Freitas,
he had Rob Freitas there and all these great Barrett Baker, great
just
top of the line mold makers.
every aspect of the art of makeup effects is just done at the highest level, and it was like,
Yeah.
and everyone was constantly trying to innovate and improve and trying to do better things, and it was just it's such a great environment. I don't know if you've worked at shops where nobody really gives a shit, and there's not I don't you probably haven't, but I've worked on shows where like people just don't really care, and it's just like,
And the genius is lacking
yeah,
because
yeah,
you're there and no one cares and nothing's buoying you up.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's
And
like, how
so
am I
yeah,
supposed to care when nobody else cares? Even
yeah,
the boss doesn't seem to care.
yeah.
It's like, but um so anyway, what one thing I was gonna say also was at Rick's, because I think I came in late, and there was a thing with well, I won't get into that, but I kind of came in late. So I was like, once I started sculpting, I was kind of like, I would do background stuff. Like for apes, I was all background apes, chimps,
Yeah.
gorillas, orangutans. But I was totally fine with that because I was just finally able to utilize these things that I was learning from Mitch,
Yeah.
and no oversight. They didn't give a shit. Like, who cares about a background mask? But but I know that Rick is going to want his background masks to look as good as the main characters.
Yeah.
So I was making these rubber
Delivering.
masks as good quality as the hero pieces.
Yep.
And it was cool because there was like no pressure, because I know with like the Helena Bonham Carter, they went through it was hard. There was a lot of scrutiny for the different characters when they were designing stuff, I think.
I actually think that makeup on Helena Bonham Carter was maybe not the right approach, because they kept trying to make her look beautiful by imposing like lipstick and human kind of techniques. And whereas in the original Planet of the Apes, there was kind of an attractiveness to the female characters.
Right. Yeah.
And they weren't trying to be,
that's true.
So that's quite the challenge.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure if it entirely worked, but
it's just, I don't know. I think that they got lucky in the original Planet of the Apes that they sort of looked cute in a way. I think
in a way.
It was just luck. I guess they just shouldn't
Well,
have.
Helena Bonham Carter is very cute. And so I'm thinking, what were they? Yeah.
I mean, looking back,
they were probably overthinking it.
I remember thinking that at the time, and looking back now, because I, for some reason, saw those makeups recently. I was like, you know what? I totally get this makeup now. It seemed to make sense to me. Like, I get it. I think it works. I think it's fine. I think it's good. But I was gonna say, like, at Rick's, I never got to be one of the top guys, like a Matt or a Kazu or a Mitch.
Or Aaron.
Or Eddie. It's like he had his people, and it's like they earned it. They've been there from the beginning. It's all good. But I didn't really care. As long as I got to sculpt, and then I ended up getting like weird stuff that, like on Men in Black 2, which maybe we can get there was Haunted Mansion. I got to sculpt a bunch of zombie stuff. Nobody gave a shit.
Yeah.
There was no input at all about these zombies. They're just like, Bill's like, make a bunch of zombies. And me and Beinke and I think Norman sculpted one or two. And I don't remember who else sculpted, but I sculpted a bunch of these zombies, and they're just super fun and
beautiful. And they were beautiful, Chet.
And again, the movie was terrible. I hated that movie.
I never even.
So bad. It's like Planet of the Apes bad, maybe worse. It's terrible. But man, it was like, I was so happy doing that. I didn't need to have like a main character. I know that like early on, I was like, I want to have a main character in the movie. At this point, I was like, no, I just want to do the coolest stuff with the least amount of bother by any outside forces. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
And then
it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to do some of probably my best work,
Yeah.
And, so I was kind of happy at that level. I didn't have this need to try and get higher. And, cause I knew I was doing as good a work. I just wasn't getting the hero characters, and I just didn't give a shit. And, Men in Black 2, I got to have that character, that pretzel guy. And that was totally left alone on that. It was kind of amazing to think about. Like, I designed it, they approved it, and then I just made it. And
that was cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And I painted it.
It was like a Bunraku puppet, wasn't it?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, a person wore it, and they were green. Their limbs were operating this, and the human element was green screened out.
Yeah, and it was all funky look, and they didn't use it in Men in Black 2, and it's like I didn't even really care that much they didn't use it. It was like I just had fun making it. I just want to make the stuff, but I
remember that piece well. I was right next. I was just on the other side of the wall, or the desk. Right, it was very, very cool.
And they ended up using it in Men in Black 3, so it is in the movie finally. Good. Yeah, so that was kind of cool that it finally made it. But so yeah, you worked at, what did you do on Men in Black 2? You did that weird little.
I did that little guy that one of the characters' upper torso pops off, and there's a little guy that's operating the legs, and that was a kind of based on a design Rick did, and I just kind of interpreted it, sculpted it. But I worked a lot on the worm guys. I had to resculpt those.
Oh, really?
But those are an Aaron Sims design, so I couldn't really design anything. And then I worked on a full scale worm guy, a large scale worm guy. And then
Hmm.
let's see what else. I worked on that big squid-like thing that was in Med headquarters, and just nothing really, just kind of there, just helping out where I could.
Were you enjoying that?
Yeah, until the 4 month part came
Oh,
out. 4
okay.
months or five
Hmm.
months came around, and then I got weird again,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so weird. But I don't regret it, because it was time I spent with my family,
yeah.
you know.
That's what. Yeah,
So,
that's what counts in the end,
and
really.
I think it was Men in Black 2 where my parents were able to come by and see the shop. And I
Hmm.
remember my dad. I introduced Moto to my dad, and
Oh,
I
that's
think Matt
cool.
and Chad, and so that was very cool. So, um, yeah, there was definitely a good memory to it.
Was that the last thing you worked on for Rick?
Yeah,
You didn't
it
work
was.
on Men in Black 3?
Nope, I was
Oh.
over on. We were on at Mountains Madness.
Oh, right. That's right. That's right. Okay, so
Did you go over on Men in Black 3?
no, but they wanted me
Oh,
to.
okay.
But I guess that's why. I was thinking
Yeah.
I couldn't, but it was because we were working on Mountains of Madness. Yeah, which is another story. But um uh so you weren't there when Rick's closed down, because that was like the
No, and
end of an era. Rick's
oh
shop
my
closing
God,
down because
I'm kind of grateful for that. Because well, he quit it, shut it down.
we
When did
did
he first
Cursed.
shut it down? After Planet of the Apes?
We did Cursed. We did a movie called Cursed.
Yes. Yes. Was that pre Planet of the Apes or post Planet of the
I think it
Apes?
was post.
And he shut it down after his I think what was his mother passed away, or his father, but understandably. But yeah, he shut it down officially once, or no, initially, and then he brought the crew back for Men in Black 3.
Yeah, right.
So the shop was still open, but there was just
Right.
a lull in between.
Yeah, yeah. It was so weird though, because I've told the story a few times because I was there since I came in and I was only there like 5 years. And I was still kind of the outsider in a way, still, I wasn't one of I just, because like I said, I wasn't, most of the people there had been there for a long time.
Yeah,
And so I
yeah.
was just there. I was kind of like the new guy still in a way. And I got in because of Bill. Bill got me in painting. And
Mhm.
it was weird because I wasn't so personally attached to that place like everybody else was, and I had this weird outsider perspective watching like everyone talking about it and everybody. I remember the big announcement that they were going to close it down, and people were
Oh, that was
so
horrible.
upset. And
I bet that was horrible, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah, it was horrible, but it was weird.
I'm glad I missed it.
I was kind of like detached from it in a weird
Hmm.
way because it wasn't, I mean, it sounds, I don't know, maybe it sounds callous, but it was like I didn't have that same attachment to the place. So I was like observing everything. I was seeing it
Yeah,
from like an outside perspective. Like I was looking at everybody else. I was looking at everybody and the whole shop. This big event was happening to them. Whereas for me, it was like, it just didn't I was at that point, I was knowing that I wanted to get out of the industry anyway, 5 years in, because first started thinking around 2000 I wanted to be a fine artist. And by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm trying to get out of the business. So it wasn't as big a deal to me, but it was really just, it was weird seeing it because so many people were working there. There was like a huge crew, all these different seamers and hair people and costuming. And that shop was just huge and
yeah,
amazing. It was amazing. It was like a castle inside. It looked like it was done up like a castle with gargoyles. It was such the most amazing
amazing.
place to work. And man, it was such a bummer just for that place to close. It was kind of felt like, well,
Now it's a storage unit.
yeah, it's so
Jeez.
sad. It was just like the best shop that ever existed is closing
Yep,
now. It's over.
yep.
And it was like so weird to live through that. In a sense, I feel like I feel like I got in right at the end of the golden age of effects. At the end of the 80s. It was like right when it was starting to kind of go down a little bit. That's how I feel like it.
So you got in when? 88?
87, 7.
Oh, that's great. So at least you got to
I got a
experience a
little
good.
bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, it kind of slowly went downhill a little bit in a way for me, because I was working at, on other shops. I
Well,
suppose
it
if you're
was,
working at Rick's, is a different story, but
but you were still there before the advent of CG.
yeah,
So
right.
once the CG hit, then
Yeah, that's when it started.
it,
Yeah.
cracks started forming.
Yep.
So yeah.
And ultimately, I think Rick closed the shop down because they didn't have the kind of budgets to do it right. And he didn't want to do it if it wasn't done right. He could have stayed
Yeah.
open and
To his credit,
still made a bunch of money, but
but
he didn't want to do it unless he could do it
what's the
right.
point unless the quality's there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Rick had standards.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what other films in the early 2000s you worked on?
Let's see. I went over and did some stuff for ADI. So I did like worked on some kind of not so great movies. I worked on Evolution, Scary Movie 3. There was a period in which as we were going to do I Am Legend at ADI, and it
Mhm.
was going to be a Ridley Scott film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and everything. So I was kind of at the ground level on that, helping out with designs and things. So
I was we were trying to get it at Spectral. I did a bunch of
Spectral,
designs
that's
for that.
right. Yeah.
So we were
And so
competing.
we're yeah. And Steve Johnson's shop was trying to get it and
Hmm.
everything. And so Tom and
Yeah.
Alec got it. But Tom and Alec are just real quick are very interesting, unusual because they're both really fun, talented guys, but they worked well together. So they were a really good team in that they never really stepped on each other's toes. They worked it out. If there were any differences, they took it outside of the shop.
They were Stan
And
guys, right?
yeah,
They came from
yeah.
Stan
And so
Winston's
they
shop.
formed their own company, ADI, on the movie Tremors. But they really had kind of an unusual shot, given that these two alphas were able to work it out.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
two Stan guys were able to work it out,
I never
and
worked there. I never worked there. I never worked there. I
yeah,
never worked at Steve's, and I never worked at Roboteens um
and Stan's.
and
Did you work
Stan's.
at Stan's?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
never worked at Stan's or Steve's or yeah, but anyway, so then I then worked with at Spectral Motion on a couple films,
Right.
X-Men 3, and you and I worked on that,
Yeah.
and what else?
You didn't work on Fantastic Four?
Nope, I didn't work on that.
Fantastic
Um,
Four Part 2?
nope,
Okay.
nope. I see. I worked on the Beast for X-Men 3,
That's
and
right.
then I think I worked for Jose Fernandez on a couple when he formed his shop. I worked out on Battleship and what else? A couple movies for him. Um, yeah, and then Captive Audience, Greg Cannons for Benjamin Button,
Yeah.
and
That was a big historic effects film.
that was a big movie. And
T-
so I'm very grateful for Miles Tevis because he's the one that called me and contacted
Oh,
me.
cool.
So
So were you
I
like the lead sculptor on that?
no, I would say that would be Miles.
Oh, okay.
And then Martin Astle and myself were kind of like backups because Miles really had already worked out a lot of Brad Pitt's makeups
Hmm.
and Kate Blanchett's. So when I came aboard, my task was to sculpt the 90-year-old or Brad Pitt baby. And then we've talked about that.
Right.
That was really, really an interesting challenge. And then
That
after
must have been
that,
really weird.
oh, it was wonderful. And then after that, I helped out. I did Jason Fleming's old age makeup and helped detail some of Kate Blanchett's makeups and worked on little pieces. There were so many iterations because the characters aged. There were so many stages
Hmm.
that I just kind of we just kind of all worked on just to kind of keep the load, stay on top of the load of work. Miles at one point went over to work on Iron Man, so to do some
Oh
maquettes
shit,
for
Iron Man,
that.
yeah.
And so then it was just me and Martin at the shop, and so I did some Golda Meir makeups on Oh, that wonderful actress, Rhoda, who was in the series Rhoda.
Oh, I,
Oh, she's really nice, and she just passed away a few years ago. So I was there at Canham's Captive Audiences for a little while, but I want to say something really interesting, and it's not so much that it's about me, but about life, in
mhm.
that life does present moments that that start one way and in another,
Valerie
and it's
Harper.
Valerie Harper.
Sorry.
Yep. No, no. Benjamin Button started out fantastic, but then it counterbalanced itself later.
Hmm.
In that, um, I didn't get my last few paychecks,
Really?
and then I was through, and production had to pay me, and then things were just kind of something was wrong at Captive Audience.
Yeah, that's when that all that stuff went down,
Yeah, I think we
right?
had dinner that one time after I was done. You, Moto, Matt, and Mitch and I think we went and had dinner. Do you
Right.
remember that?
Yeah, faintly. Yeah.
Yeah, and you and Moto left early, and then it was just uh I think it was, or Mitch did. But anyway, that was a wonderful dinner because that was the last time I saw Moto
Oh,
in
wow.
person. Yeah,
Wow.
and I hugged him.
Yeah.
And when he left, so the last time I saw Moto, it was with a hug, which is very nice. And
Yeah.
but anyway, what happened was, I didn't myself and a couple people were let go, and we didn't get there wasn't money to pay us, and so that was weird. And here's the part where it's the counterbalance. I didn't get a credit on the movie, nor did Greg Canham mention me on Oscar night as he went up and received the
No.
Oscar. He mentioned everybody
No.
but me.
Why?
And I was all I don't know, my parents and I were all excited and that
Oh,
maybe
what a
this was the opportunity
disappointment.
to have my name mentioned on Oscar
What
night.
a
And
disappointment.
I was the one person that was snubbed.
Oh my.
But
You never talked
some
to him about it?
no, I was too upset.
Yeah.
I kind of complained about it to Miles, and I was asked to come back on another movie for Greg, but I was hesitant because I thought I'm going to have to confront him, and I don't want things to get ugly, and I
Yeah.
just never really worked on it. But something was operative in the universe. This wasn't just about me or my ego or something. I remember the day Benjamin Buttons came out, in Utah, the main paper is called the Salt Lake Tribune. I was all excited. I was with my parents at the time on the weekend. They had the Tribune, and I was all excited. It was Christmas Day because it just opened, and I thought, all right, let's read the review of Benjamin Button. The one section that was missing from our paper was the arts and entertainment section,
Wow.
and I couldn't read it. And my sisters even called some of the local papers to say to tell them that, I contributed to this major Hollywood Brad Pitt movie, and they didn't want it. They weren't interested. I
Wow.
didn't get that section in the Tribune. Greg Canham snubbed me on Oscar night and the credits, and I was just like, what's operative here?
Yeah, you're getting a hint from the universe or
What's
something.
operative here? Because it started out, I was lucky. I was lucky. Miles got me onto this really groundbreaking, wonderful movie, and then just kind of played itself out. And so, in hindsight, it was more interesting than anything, but it was fun. It was fun because it was the first show where I actually got to do old age makeups,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was a blast.
How did you
So,
handle the detailing work? Because I know you're not a fan of detailing.
um,
You just made it happen.
I kind of felt, Miles has a kind of interesting technique for detailing
Hmm.
because he never adopted the Mitch Devane approach, but Miles had a way of he would use the little wire loop tool, I think, or something, but he kind of okay, so rather than cover a full facial appliance, say, with 200,000 little pores,
Mm-hmm.
Miles had a way to disperse the pores, so he only put in maybe 300.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a way of dispersing just enough that you felt like the information was there.
Hmm.
It was really an interesting technique. And so I kind of just followed his lead and realized, okay, I don't have to do really intensive detail,
Mm-hmm.
but rather let's just make sure these forms using the white Roma Plastilina that I was having so much fun with, and just have fun with the forums. But I know but we didn't do any much of the poor stuff, but it was still just just carved in
Hmm.
details, you know. So it was the level of detail that was probably 70 to 80% of what, say, Rick would do
Or
or
Mitch, yeah.
expect. It's like what you're saying,
Right.
what the shop expects, and Greg didn't expect the level of detail like that because, frankly, well, that's odd. You know why? Because look at Mitch. He worked for Greg for all those years before he went to Rick's.
Right.
So it's funny. It's
Yeah.
funny that. So I think what happened is once Miles kind of took over the reins when Mitch left and was kind of the head sculptor at Canham's, he's so talented that he just brought a different way of doing things, and it was
Right.
acceptable. The
Hmm.
talent, the level of quality was there. So it's like, okay, it's different, but it's
Right.
not less.
Right.
And so, and it actually was a little more conducive to how I I work. So,
That's cool. Well, it
and of
didn't.
course, Miles had, worked so long at Rob's where there was no texture.
Right.
So it was interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is interesting. Um, so I mean, this is like, you didn't wait. You didn't work on you. Did you work on the first Hellboy? You didn't work on Hellboy.
No,
I thought you
no,
worked on.
I did it was during my little weird phase, and I did a sculpture of Hellboy
Yeah, I think it
and
was
to try to get
amazing.
onto it, and it just never happened. I don't know. I think what it was is that Matt had already done so much, and he and Chad, that there really wasn't too much more room
It
for
was a
that
small
movie.
show. It was a.
It was a small show, and I think between Matt, Chad, and Mitch and
That's
Kazu, they were
yeah.
able to, that was enough
Well, it was also
manpower.
yeah. It was like Matt's show too,
It was Matt's show.
and I kind of had. I think for some reason that maybe it was like it wouldn't have been a big enough budget show for Rick
Mm,
had not been at Matt's pet project.
yeah,
So I
exactly.
think it was probably done with as few resources as possible because maybe it was
Mhm.
taking from other shows or something. Because Rick had his whole crew there working on some other show at the time. I remember something was going on there.
I think so. I
It was like
remember
there was a
Matt.
big project and then there was Hellboy
Planet
going
of
on
the
at the same
Apes.
time.
It was Planet.
Yeah,
I think it was
right. Yeah,
Planet of
you're
the
right.
Apes
You're right.
because Matt started those. Matt was doing maquettes for Hellboy on The Grinch.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there when he had started it. I never saw Guillermo enter the shop, but he had worked in in a room in the back on the Ron Perlman live cast and was
Mm-hmm.
doing maquettes. So he and Chad were trying to get this going because they were fans of the Hellboy Mike Mignola
Yeah.
comics, which are fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
um, I know Rob was a fan of those too,
Hmm.
because on his directorial debut, he brought those in as reference, kind of
Oh
help
wow.
with certain things. But anyway, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it was kind of
So
a
they're not going to
unique
be
project.
hiring, any more people than they
Oh,
had to. So that's probably. And I worked on it just because I happened to be there, working on
and
Apes.
and that was a big contribution too. That right hand of doom was
Thanks.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was fun. It was. I love
Yeah,
sculpting stone, like
and it kind
old
of helped
cracked stone.
you kind of get into Guillermo's radar, wasn't it?
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's around the time he started buying my work too. I think. Yeah, because he was like for a while he was buying everything, all my good pieces. He would buy them right away. It was crazy.
That's so cool.
And then on Hellboy 2, he told me that he wasn't going to buy anymore.
He's a
He's a
Chetaholic
Chet. I'm a
in
Chetaholic.
recovery.
I got to stop,
That's so
which
cool.
is hilarious. But yeah, and I sculpted some of the. I did some detailing too, and I painted the horns, and I
Oh,
and I did
okay.
and then for the chest, the naked chest scene, Matt was
Did you do
detailing
some
it.
of the detail work on that or
Yeah,
some?
yeah, I helped Matt
Okay.
detail it, so we were both kind of working on it. So that was pretty cool. And then on Hellboy 2, I did that Chamberlain on Doug Jones make that makeup, and
Yeah, that was total. That had your signature all over. That was really cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was one of those few times where it was like I get to design with no input. Basically, Guillermo just saw it and approved it, so that was pretty great.
You know what? You guys did great work. I've got to do a shout out to Mike Elzaldi and all of it. That Hellboy 2 show was incredible.
Yeah, yeah,
It was
it was
incredible.
great. Yeah,
Everything in that movie was just stunningly good, and there was a lot of it.
yeah. I mean that
There was a
one.
lot of it.
I forget the name of that one creature, the one main bad monster creature, that big tentacle guy fights in the subway. There's an
Oh, well, that was in Hellboy.
that wasn't in.
No, in Hellboy
Okay,
2,
okay, yeah.
this brother and sister were the
That's
antagonists,
right. That's right. I'm totally getting
and
them
yeah,
confused.
and so
But
you
that
guys
that
did.
that stuff was amazing. That whole suit was
Oh,
incredible with all the tentacles and everything. Unbelievable. But anyway, sorry, go on. Yeah,
but
this was Hellboy 2 had the troll market and all that stuff.
the troll market, and that's where I was blown away by that
Yeah.
because there were so many things in there that you could. And wasn't the Chamberlain in that sequence or
I don't
whatever?
remember. I gotta watch it
Oh,
again. I gotta watch it again.
I had to write Mike and compliment him on that because I thought it was just incredible work. And
Yeah. I did
yeah,
get the cathedral head. There was the
yep,
cathedral head, and then
okay,
there was the in the troll market there was the
tumor baby.
yeah, the tumor baby, which I didn't sculpt or anything, but I just designed it. It was
Oh,
just
okay.
one because I did a bunch of designs. They're on my old website still. That's up, but
Oh,
I did a ton of like Photoshop stuff, and that was one of the things I designed. And it was like, and our shop didn't do it. That Spanish effect shop did it,
oh, DDT.
DDT. And I
Yeah.
remember seeing the movies like, oh, I didn't even know that got. I was surprised because it was like, hey, I designed that thing. I didn't even know because
Oh,
it was like they made it in Spain and they shot it in Prague, and so I didn't even know it made it in the
so
movie.
I didn't know DDT worked on Hellboy 2.
I think it was them. I'm pretty sure it was them. They did like just
Okay.
some extra kind of like stuff for the troll market, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're amazing. They did
Yeah, I've got them on the list.
yeah,
They
Pan's
did Pan's
Pan's
Labyrinth. All the
Labyrinth,
work
which
after
is
that was just,
incredible, which everybody thinks I did that guy, that the guy with no eyes.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody thinks I did that because of
It does. It
because
kind of has a flavor of yours.
yeah, but it's like I I always tell people I didn't do that. It's cool. I
That's
wish I did
funny.
it because I think it's awesome.
So let me just a shout out to the DDT. It's David Marty and Montse uh, Ribe. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce their last name, but they're
Yeah.
top notch.
Yeah, they do awesome work.
And they won an Oscar for Pan's Labyrinth,
Yeah,
so
amazing.
deservingly.
Yeah. It's a great
So
movie.
yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know, is there any other notable, it's like we're not going to get to everything because you just can't. But I mean, I figure
You can't. Are we in the 2000s? Do we
yeah,
want to
we're in the
acknowledge? Okay.
2000s. We're what are the notable things to at least
Let me tell you my list real quick.
okay.
So, okay, something very important, pivotal happened in the 2000s, and that was Lord of the Rings.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Richard Taylor and Weta.
Yeah.
That to me was when it just kind of like the little ecosystem of LA just kind of exploded, and all the parts just landed globally.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of started to form, and Hollywood is no longer the epicenter of special makeup effects.
Right.
And when Lord of the Rings happened, the reins were passed to him because Richard Taylor and his amazing crew and those amazing movies where they got to do everything.
Yep.
There was every kind of makeup and animatronic suits. It was like they were for a while there, and it was a long while. They were the center of the special makeup effects and animatronic universe
Yeah.
and digital. So
And they had a bunch
so
of Americans working over there too. Wasn't there like Gino?
Gino went and moved to New Zealand.
Yeah.
I know Mark Viniello went over there and did some foam work, and I'm not sure if who else went over there, but yeah, they borrowed a couple um,
I remember some
uh,
people.
LA people.
I remember some people. Rich, Big Rich, another guy passed away. Do you know Big
I never
Rich
worked with
Mayberry?
him. Rich
Rich
Mayberry. I
Mayberry.
never worked with him, but
He
people.
worked over. He worked on that. I think Vance
Oh,
Hartwell did. He
Okay.
worked on something over there. I thought it was Lord of the Rings, but I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that was like a yeah. It's funny that
Randy Cook went over there,
okay.
and yeah, but that was a big deal.
Yeah, it was
That
huge.
Lord of the Rings was a big deal, and and I think we need to mention um, AI, the movie AI,
Oh
because
right.
the reason why I want to mention that is because someone we really haven't talked about who needs to be is Aaron Sims.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
so what Aaron was really getting into digital at the time. And
Yep.
Stan, and I hope I get this wrong, forgive me, Aaron, but Stan said, why don't you just use this, like he was using Maya or whatever at the time. Why don't you just use this program to do some designs for this show? And so what happened is Aaron took the ball and ran with it and would do like a design a day, a robot design
Mm.
using a 3D modeling program. So he would build the model and render it out, and there was a complete design there. And that was, I think, a first.
Hmm.
And so AI was really kind of a groundbreaker there. And we talked
Well,
about Planet of the Apes and stuff, but yeah,
I have to say, um, uh, uh, I used 3D animation to design a character for a Tool video back in 90's, in the late
was
90's.
was that oh, what was it exactly?
It was like this animation puppet, this weird like for this Tool Parabola video. Is the song's called Parabola. It's a little creature that's face goes like this. It's like the whole
Oh,
time. And
oh,
it's got like a weird spiral on its side, and it's very smooth and like kind of long legs and long arms. And that was designed in 3D and 3D printed way back then. Like we 3D
really?
printed the puppet, and then it's big. I mean, here I'll show you. Hold on one second.
Okay.
It's like, we used
Oh, that's cool.
Lightwave because he wanted this spiral on the side, this perfect spiral, and it's supposed to be smooth and not organic looking.
Oh, that's
Hold on a
neat,
second.
Chet.
And that was kind of honestly, I kind of forgot about that.
I'm
That was kind
I'm
of
glad you told me about that because yeah, you were doing something very innovative
yeah, and
simultaneously
it was
with
silicone. The puppet. I think the
whoa.
Tool videos, as far as I know, were the first silicone stop motion puppets
Oh,
because
wow.
on the Anima video we did before that, um, everything was in water, and so we had to make these puppets waterproof. So we made them in silicone, and maybe there were, but I hadn't heard of any. This is like
Was this
90.
Adam Jones' suggestion, or how did you collaborate with Adam Jones on these?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh,
I mean, it was. I think it was sort of like this is the problem.
okay.
Everything, the sets are all with water, so we got to figure out something that's waterproof. And
So that
silicone
guy you just
was
showed me was underwater, and it
no,
was.
that guy. That's for a different video.
Oh, okay.
These first characters they needed to be waterproof, so silicone was becoming a standard at that point. This is like 98 or something, late 90's.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
and so it was like, okay, yeah, we'll make them in silicone. That way they because it was like running water they were using in stop motion, which was really cool and weird.
Yeah.
And then we just did this one in silicone just because it was silicone and it looked translucent and cool. And it doesn't have that same buckling that foam latex has for stop motion. And since we knew it worked on the other one, we just use it
Those
for the look.
tool, yeah, those tool videos are kind of,
They have
they're kind of grand. They ain't got
a little bit.
their influence, don't they?
There's a little bit
Yeah.
of part of the history of makeup effects.
Well, I'm glad you told me that. I didn't know about that because I knew you got into the digital world, but Yeah, you
Yeah,
were
it
kind of
was.
ahead of the curve on that.
And the other another thing was the cathedral head on Hellboy was 3D printed too,
3D printed.
which was
So
one of the
you
early
did
times.
you design that? Was it scanned or did you design it in the
No, I
computer?
built it in Lightwave. Yeah,
Oh,
it's crazy. It was again,
Chet, way to go, man. That's really cool.
yeah, it was cool. It was the early days. Gentle Giant did the 3D printing. Remember everyone was
Yep,
going to Gentle Giant per.
yep. We went. I think. Wait, yeah. We actually did do some scans and have on Men in Black, and we had some of the smaller sculptures scanned, and then we had them milled in foam. And there was one guy, and I don't think he was that came over and did it. He took the maquettes and then he reproduced them to scale in this foam.
Oh wow.
And that's how we sculpted the Edgar bug at the end. So that was Moto, Eddie Yang, and I who did that.
Wow.
But no, it wasn't 3D printed. It was 3D milled.
Milled, yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
But so on my list,
Mm,
if you want us to move on,
yeah.
so I wanted to mention AI, and we talked about Hannibal, that Greg Canham, Miles Tevis, Glenn
Oh
Hans's
yeah.
makeup.
That's a classic. That was Miles was involved in that, huh?
Yes, so Miles did some designs, and I think Glenn Hans, who I've worked with at Rob's, incredible talent. That's a groundbreaking makeup
It is, definitely. Yeah.
on Gary Oldman,
Yeah,
the
what's the
Mason
deal
Berger
with that?
makeup.
What is special about that makeup? I forget. There was something with the eye that was like
Yes,
insane.
there was a little mechanism underneath the appliance that would right before shooting they could it was almost like a cable operated thing that would just pull the eye open
No way.
right before shooting. So
Oh,
during the
so it
scene,
wasn't
it would
always
pull it
like
open.
that.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
when you're done, it could close. And that was ingenious. And then it was a
Wow.
silicone makeup, and it was beautifully sculpted. And of course, any makeup on Gary Oldman is just perfect pairing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So that was an influential.
yeah.
I think that I don't know what was got the Oscar that year, but I can't. That makeup was so good.
Yeah, it
Um,
was definitely groundbreaking.
and then I do want to mention, at least mention Fight Club. I didn't work on it, but that was Rob's kind of
Yeah.
last main movie, Rob Bottin's,
Mm-hmm.
and that was he and David Fincher and us, Fear and Loathing in Vegas. He did some of the
Yeah.
lizard, but those are cool. But it wasn't like a Rob Bottin movie. It was like a Rob contribution. Whereas
Right.
Fight Club was kind of a Rob movie,
Right.
and that Fight Club's a great
And
movie.
that's
So,
what he did. That head that the shoots him. He shoots
uh-huh.
himself with the head. Is that the main effect, or was
Edward
there other
Norton
stuff?
shoots himself, and I remember him describing this whole sequence when I was in the shop on the another movie, and Rob was supposed to build and do all of that, but Fincher's such he's so a technology inspired artist that he decided to do it all digital.
Hmm.
But Rob did build a fake Edward Norton
Oh,
head
that's
and
all
did all the
digital.
makeup appliances. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So.
Wow. So that was the only thing in the film that he did, or
Oh, no, no. Rob did a fake head of Meatloaf, the actor Meatloaf, who's played a character, Bob,
uh
that gets killed. So he did a fake body of that. And then he did the battered appliances
oh,
for the
okay.
actors.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then, and some were more
Were
ambitious.
those
And
silicone appliances?
uh, huh, I don't know. I didn't
Uh,
work on it, so I don't know.
yeah.
But I thought they looked really good.
Yeah, they're great.
And I do think we need to mention, we haven't mentioned K&B much, but they did
Oh, that's
Chronicles
right.
of Narnia
Yeah, that was their
around that time.
big. Wasn't that their big breakthrough
Oscar
kind
winner.
of? Yeah,
It
yeah.
was. And it was a
Epic.
fantasy, uh, and everything looked great. Mitch worked on it. It was a great effects movie.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, they did a lot of stuff. They definitely like came into their own on that show, I think.
they did. And
Because did like a lot of low budget stuff early on, didn't they?
yep.
And they
hmm
kind of climbed their way up, and now they're like, you know,
Now they're such a well-oiled machine that I'm amazed at at what they're doing. I
Yeah.
mean, as far as just Walking Dead alone, uh, violence
Yeah,
and
yeah,
body
yeah,
damage and
yeah.
zombie. I mean, they've got it nailed.
Yeah. Those are the best zombies ever made, or in that
Yeah.
movie. Pretty much they perfected the zombie, and they also have like a range of all kinds of different things. They kind of do everything.
hmm Yeah.
They just became one of the major shops that kind of
They became one of the major shops just the because of the amount of work that they did. I
yeah,
mean, K&B was always busy.
always.
And they were getting
Yep,
all size kinds of movies, and I
yep,
think there's something to be said for that because they just kept getting
yep,
better and better and better.
yep.
Yeah,
And everybody's worked there pretty much. It's like most people I know that I worked with. I never worked there, but
I didn't either.
they were one of those shops where it was like a lot of people worked there.
Yeah,
They were well known.
yeah, a major contributor to
Mm,
our art, I must say.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah, and Harry Potter.
Oh,
That was
true.
British.
Yeah,
Shout out to the British, amazing British artist, and that's part of the Lord of the Rings effect,
right.
where big productions are starting to happen
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere, and it was they were able to utilize all of the talent
Right.
abroad. So and yeah, those Harry Potter, Nick Dudman, I think was the main guy
Mm-hmm.
on Harry Potter, but man, he utilized all of the great talent in Britain,
Yeah.
elsewhere. The Barry Gowers, and I have a whole list of just current European and global um, contributors to the art of makeup effects. And I'll go over that whenever you feel it's appropriate. But yeah, as far as my 2000s list, I think we've covered it. So if you have something,
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much.
there's so much.
And
We're gonna overlook stuff.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's also like this is sort of when we got out of the
hmm
business in the middle of that is sort of when we got out of it. So definitely felt less connected and less
Yeah.
invested in seeing the films even really. And
hmm
once I got out of the whole thing, so I'm not even, I wouldn't have never thought of Harry Potter if you hadn't have brought it up. But it's like, it's definitely belongs
Yeah.
there. Although it's like the thing about it, like a Harry Potter, it's like even a Lord of the Rings, it it wasn't a major makeup effects innovation as much as it's more like just an epic production that's not done in
Yeah.
Hollywood, and it's significant for those reasons. It's done well, but it's done,
Mhm.
Hollywood Rick Baker standards or whatever, but it's done outside of that system, and it's just done with a huge amount of work using like
Yeah.
all of the techniques that have been established already.
Yes.
Although I do know that one thing I heard is that Gino Acevedo, who was like the painter, I think
Rowetta.
for Weta, I think yeah, because the major innovation in that movie was Gollum, and that was a CG thing. And I
Yes.
think that one innovative thing that's kind of makeup effects adjacent is that they had cast silicone and he painted it and scanned that for the texture artists. So
Yeah.
it's like a scan of a painted silicone piece.
Yeah,
I think.
he painted the fake body of Boromir uh in that movie, and it kind of made Richard Taylor and everyone realize what a gem they have with Gino.
Hmm.
And he then branched out in the other departments to kind of show them some of his techniques. And I think you're right. And this is something to ask him, of course.
Yeah.
But I think he helped kind of um, inform both the digital and practical of some of the
Right.
stuff he knew how
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do. Yeah, and of course, I think Lord of the Rings, the Gollum was a groundbreaker.
Yeah. For
Performance
sure.
capture with Andy
Hmm.
Serkis, and yeah, that was pretty amazing. Um,
Yeah, I hope we don't piss anybody off. I'm thinking of all these people I worked with, like
we're
Tim
not going to
Tim
say every.
Gore. It's like
Oh,
Tim Gore is just painted on everything, and there's so many
there's so
shop
much talent.
guys.
There's so many
there's so
shop
much
guys.
talent that just have worked on everything, but you just can't mention them all. There's so
Can't,
many of them.
but we know they're there and they've contributed, and
Yes.
they're
You know who you
it's
are.
senius. It's senius. You know, they know who they
Yeah.
are, and they've all elevated. We've elevated each other, and it was
Yeah.
what a privilege to be amongst them. But I do, Chet, want to. I
Okay.
feel like. Oh yeah, go ahead.
You were gonna read that list.
Yeah.
Before we do that, I think we should talk about just more recent stuff in the
Okay.
history. I think the biggest innovations that have been done recently are like Kazu's silicone makeups, and not even not just Kazu's, but because I know there have been some amazing silicone makeups, but his Winston Churchill makeup is
Mhm.
kind of incredible.
It's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
perfect, I think. I mean,
Yeah.
I would have to watch it again and just look at the makeup, but it's just on this whole other level. I can't, I've worked with Kazu, as I know you have, and you don't realize the way that Kazu does things is like he figures out. It's not like me at all, like the way I work. The way I work is very, you could look at one of my painting videos and see how I work. I'm not methodical. I just
Mm.
kind of am all over and I just kind of feel my way through it until it's done. Kazu, he gets, and I have so much respect for this. He finds the most efficient, effective, smart way of doing every aspect of a makeup application, even the process of the sculpting, the molding. He figures out the very best way it can be done, even the way how he's holding his brushes. Like he'll find these weird little like belts to hold his brushes, or
Mhm.
ways of holding the cups. Like every aspect of what he's doing is just like he figures out.
He'll design and 3D print airbrush holders and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every facet of
So
yes,
he's
yes.
just like makes everything perfect, and then the makeups he does are just absolutely perfect. They're just perfect, and I think that that's kind of like I think that makeup on Churchill, and I may be forgetting some other ones that he did. That seems
Well,
to me like the accumulation of all the silicone prosthetic technology and makeup technology, everything up to this point, kind of like expressed perfectly. You know what I mean? The culmination of
yeah.
everything.
You know what's beautiful about Kazu is he's kind of like these singular, brilliant artists, kind of like the Dick Smiths, Rick Bakers, Rob Bottin's.
Yeah,
They're singular. And
yeah.
so it's almost a vent when he comes out with the makeup,
Yeah.
like it used to be. Whereas, the shops are so big and the scenius of all the shops in European. But with Kazu, he almost does everything himself, and you'll
He
just
that
hire
in
out like
that
a Rob Freitas or Deanna
yeah
Troy,
in
whoever
that
to help him out.
yeah. In that way, I see him. He's like this generation's Dick Smith. He
Yes,
is the new Dick Smith. He's
he
that
is.
guy.
Heir apparent. Yes.
You know. So yeah, just he is such a
So we're
huge.
privileged and lucky that he's there to kind of for us to marvel at.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so joyous to be able to do that.
yeah. I mean, just being friends with him is cool, but
Hmm.
but also having seen his work up close and seeing how he works
Yeah.
and just seeing how well something can be done again
Yeah.
is kind of, it's just blows your mind. Like, how do you even think to three, just like
Yeah.
his mind, I think, is always thinking about how to make something better. Every aspect of it is so, it's a trip. It's a trip. But I think he's so important. He's a huge contributor to the history of makeup effects. He's like a big
I
part of it.
agree.
He's
He is.
innovated a lot of things.
He's one of the giants, and he's one of the innovators. Like you said, he's the Dick Smith of our age,
I
our
mean, even
time,
when
of the moment right now.
and it's like he came in working for Rick, and Rick kind of like kind of nurtured him and let him
Yeah.
do his thing and basically kind of do what he wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let him develop things all these, Kazu had his own little shop, his own little mini shop
Little
at
space up
Rick's.
there at the top floor next to Rick's. Yep. And that was so generous and great and right for
Right.
Rick to do because we all saw it when Kazu came in. We saw that this guy's special.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
he has something to really offer and contribute.
yeah.
And yeah, so you're
But
right.
yeah, so anyway, that's like I can't think of any other things.
Well, kind of what you're saying though, as far as Kazu, I think what's going on right now in our industry, in the special makeup effects industry, is that it's entered another plateau, another level, a different level. It's a different landscape. And so we have because yeah, there's Kazu, but if you look at the quality, and I'm gonna mention this list if it's okay.
Hmm.
The European contributors in makeup effects, it's just staggering. Barry Gower, Game of Thrones, incredible sculptor. He's
Hmm.
doing some amazing stuff right now. He worked on Harry Potter goblins that were amazing. Mark Collier just won an Oscar for Poor Things, and his crew, Nadia Stacy, Josh Weston, got Oscars. Duncan Jarman is an incredible sculptor. He's part of Barry's team.
Yeah, I don't know
They
any of
worked
these
on The
people.
Last of Us.
I
Neil
don't know.
Gordon.
I'm just so out of the loop. I don't know any of these people.
Well, these guys,
No.
Dominic Hellstone,
Oh,
you've interviewed him.
Dominic's amazing. He's
Great
incredible.
visionary designer. And
Yeah,
then
he's
the
incredible.
Spanish phenoms, DDT.
Yeah.
This guy Tristan Cornelius Versluy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Well, he worked on a lot of Alex Garland movies, which I love Alex Garland, Ex Machina, Annihilation,
Mm.
and he just came out with Civil War.
All
And
right.
yeah, and he utilizes this great sculptor Sebastian Lochman to do a lot of stuff. And Sebastian's an amazing talent. And then there's Odd Studio,
Right.
Australian, Adam Johansson, Damian Martin, amazing work. Adrian Moreau did The Whale. And this is
Oh
what's
yeah, that
interesting
was
about The Whale.
I just
He
saw
did it
that.
digitally to
I
practical.
know.
So
It's
yeah,
amazing. It's amazing.
yeah. ZBrush sculpts, ZBrush printed out molds, and then it's like the inverse of what you're used to. He brought the digital
Yeah.
technology, brought practical effects into the world for him to
Right.
use. It's
Right. That's we did
beautiful.
those we did that on Land of the Lost for the Slee Stacks. We did
Did
them
you?
we didn't okay, we had a body scan of the actor, and then
Oh,
I was sculpting, and that's when I knew ZBrush enough to sculpt like over the actor, the body
huh?
in ZBrush.
You did that.
Yeah, yeah. That was,
Oh,
and it's like I can't
Chet.
even use ZBrush now. I forgot everything
I
because
know, but I'm so glad you're telling me this stuff. You were very
well,
innovative.
well, thank you,
You knew
but
how to do both. You knew how to jump from both worlds, practical and
yeah,
digital.
well, I was interested in digital for a long, since the late 90s. I got into
Yeah.
anyway. So I think what they did is they milled them out, and they used them for reference to hand sculpt. So it wasn't like we
Oh,
actually, but yeah, I saw that the other day. I just saw a making of it just like 2 days ago, The Whale, and I was like, this is
yep.
amazing the way he did
Amazing.
this. It's like a lot of these shops, I think it's what's Stan's shop,
Legacy effects.
Legacy. They do like 3D sculptures, and then they print the molds out. Like they
Yes,
don't even
that's what
print the sculptures; they 3D print the molds. Right?
exactly, and that's what's being done. I think that was what was done with the whale.
It's crazy. It's
And
insane. So
yeah,
cool in a
and
way.
so uh, real quick, there's a company, a Hungarian company. Let's see, yeah, a Hungarian company called Film Effects, and they did Midsummer and Blade Runner 2049. They actually created about maybe 8 bodies or so where it was FDM printed. So it wasn't resin printed. They actually used the FDM filament printed
Wow.
parts, but they did it in sections and they puzzled them together. It was
Wow.
amazing. I saw behind the scenes of this and they were beautiful.
That's
And
amazing.
what a great solution to creating 8 bodies. And
Right.
so that's film effects. And then we have Adrian Merle. Steve Newborn is doing. Have you worked with Steve? You worked with Steve. He came by Elizaldi's. I remember seeing him in shops. Well, he's doing a lot of A24 movie production movies, studio movies. So
Hmm.
he just did recently Sasquatch Sunset that I just watched over the weekend. Wonderful work, and
Mm.
he did Beau's Afraid and Midsummer and a lot of Ari Aster's films. Great work.
Mm.
Okay, and then there's Vincent Van Dyke
That's what
took
I was
over
gonna say. Yeah,
Yeah,
Vincent.
Tom and Barry Berman's shop, basically, and he's doing some great work. All
Yeah,
kinds of cool work. Makeup effects, ape suits, everything.
is that where
Okay,
Arian works? Is
no, Arjen
he
Tushin,
has?
I'm glad you mentioned him. He's a Dutch phenom.
Does
He
he have
has
his
his
own
own
shop?
he has his own shop, and
Okay.
Steve Koch works with him a lot. He and Carol Koch.
Who works for
Um,
Vincent? There's a guy that works for Vincent.
I,
Thought, unless I'm
okay.
getting people confused. There's another. Okay, keep going. I'm sorry.
But I don't know. I've never met Vincent, but I admire his work, and I don't know who
Yeah,
works for him.
he's
I
great.
know Mitch. When Mitch was working, he'd occasionally do stuff. Okay, two guys that I'm really fond of that I met when I told you about Soda Effects that I met. Uh, when we saw Dick Smith's Academy honoree are Morten Jacobson and Thomas Fulberg. They're Danish effects guys,
Hmm.
and they're like these masters of realism. They don't work together now. They have their own separate shops. Great guys. I was very fond of them, and I only knew them for a day, but I immediately liked
Wow.
them. And so they've done a lot of Lars von Trier movies. And again, they've elevated the art of just realism
Right.
and gore
Yeah.
and stuff. And so it's happening
Yeah.
all over the world.
Yeah. It's like
Um,
it's like all over the world is continuing to kind of like
yes, push the envelope,
push the envelope.
the art, but it's a lot of it's has been kind of narrowed to just makeup effects. And animatronics are pretty much kind of dead.
Hmm.
So it's this makeup effects and okay, Goran Lundstrom, a Swedish artist. You recognize he's incredible.
Really?
He works a lot like with Mike Marino,
Mike Marino.
excuse
That's
me,
who I was thinking
of
of. Mike Marino's
Crorian Effects.
Mike
Yeah,
Marino's amazing.
amazing. And his crew, Mike Fontaine,
Hmm.
Art. You and I have worked with Art Sakamoto and Deanna Choi. They
Oh,
they
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 work
help him
there.
out a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
stuff. Yeah. Well, they help him. They
Yeah.
contribute with the teeth, dental work, and the hair. And so,
Uh,
yeah, I think
what about Christian Tinsley?
Christian Tinsley, yes,
Tinsley
yes,
transfers. Come on.
Tinsley
That
transfers.
was one of
Oh, I'm
his
so glad you mentioned him. I never
innovations.
worked for him, but
I
I admire
I
him.
worked at a shop. That's one of those things I worked. I don't. It was some alien thing
I'm so
that
glad you mentioned him.
yeah. I worked there for a few weeks, and he's totally cool. He's
Oh,
super nice guy. Really really
he
cool guy.
kind of someone I wish I had worked with. I would have.
You know Dan Crawley.
Yeah, I worked with Dan at Canham's. He's really talented and
Yeah,
doing some neat
super
stuff.
cool guy.
So he
Yeah,
works with Tinsley a lot.
he's worked there the last couple of years because he commissioned a painting and I brought it out to him recently and saw the shop again and
Oh,
said hi to Christian and what a great guy. Brian Brian Van Dorn works there also.
Brian Van Doren. Yep, yep.
Yeah, but
With Brian a lot of there's so much talent, and so forgive us,
I
if
know.
people we haven't overlooked, because it's not a disrespectful slight. It's just we can't name everybody, and you're all deserving of it, and so I
You
think,
brought up a lot of that. I'm so out of the loop now that you educated me on a lot of these
well,
people too.
Instagram. I see these guys work on Instagram, and I'm just blown away. Let me
Yeah,
just make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think, and I on the list because I know I'm missing people, but because there's just incredible stuff going on. But
yeah.
I really am impressed with Barry Gower too, though. His work on The Last of Us, those kind of,
Oh yeah,
uh, yeah, the
yeah.
cordyceps makeups
Yeah,
are
those were great.
just.
Those were
He's
great.
got a style of sculpting that I'm really impressed with, and I
Yeah.
was first aware of it on Harry Potter and those goblins that were in one of the Harry Potter movies. They were so beautifully done, and I think Duncan Jarman worked on those.
Hmm.
But there's a caliber of sculpting and work in Britain right now that I am
Yeah.
just blown away by.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. I'm
just
looking at Barry's stuff. It's amazing.
it's just really exciting to see all this work. Mike Marino's work is just amazing.
You know, one thing I wanted to say too before we wrap it up is, I remember when Jurassic Park came out, everyone thought it was over, effects was over, and
Yeah,
and it did affect the industry for sure.
it did.
But I'm surprised. I didn't expect makeup effects to still be around.
I didn't either.
I didn't think it would, and it's like it's still a viable, legit, thriving industry.
And there are young guys coming on
I
that are
know.
just really
I
talented.
know.
And you've interviewed a couple. Adam Doherty's doing amazing stuff.
Yep.
Noah, I forget the names, but I don't know them. I haven't met them, but I admire what they're doing, and they're just young. They're like kids, and they're doing some incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just glad. I'm glad it didn't. I thought, I really thought it was over. I really thought it was
and
over.
it's not. And just proof in what's going on in Europe and across the world is that it's just not all focused here in Los Angeles
Yeah,
anymore.
right.
And so, yeah, did I mention Andrew Clement though?
Oh yeah,
So
Andrew's
there's among
awesome. I
Todd
got
Masters, Bart, Rick Lazzarini, Andrew Clement, Brian Pennicus. Yeah, I mentioned all that.
Todd
Yeah, just
Masters.
Todd Masters.
There's yeah, he's got a
Great stuff.
shop in Canada now. I want to get him on too. Yeah, there's just so many. And Andrew Clement, does he still do the Dick Smith course?
I don't know, but he's still doing stuff. I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Because that's one thing that I don't know that we even talked about much, but that is one thing that we should mention quickly is that there was that correspondence course that Dick Smith released in the 80s.
I never took it.
I have it
But
sitting right over here. It's amazing.
Oh
But
man.
but that was like such a big, and it was in the 80s, I think. I'm sure it was in the 80s. Dick Smith, the godfather of makeup effects, he put everything he knew into this correspondence course before the internet. So it was mail. He'd mail you a chapter every month or something. And it was like $1,500, I think, or something. And you had to get approved to get in. Like you had to have a certain amount of knowledge. And it laid out like all the stuff that's still being used today, really, all the techniques, matrix molds and silicones and just foam latex and all this stuff. And yeah, next time next time we get together, remind me and I'll show you it. If you have, I don't know, you've probably seen it, I'm sure.
I'd like to see it again.
That was part of the thing. Is like you weren't supposed to share it or copy it or anything because it was like all his
what a
stuff.
gift. What a gift to all of us for him to do that.
And a lot of effects people took the Dick Smith course. That was kind of like the best thing, better than even really going to a school, I think, at the time, was because there wasn't a lot of schools.
I kind of feel bad that I didn't take it, and the reason I didn't take it because I was going to the University of Utah.
Oh, okay.
So I was getting educated in another thing.
Yeah.
But I remember I took a couple of stage makeup classes in the drama department, and oh my goodness, the drama department's fun.
Oh yeah.
Going from the fine art department into the drama, everyone was so vivacious and alive. I said, this is really cool. But I took a couple makeup courses, and one of my instructors had the Dick Smith course.
Oh, really?
And so I remember just looking through it briefly, but yeah, I was kind of on a different track.
Yeah.
But I had I not gone to college, I would have definitely wanted to take that Dick Smith course.
Yeah. So anyway, Andrew Clement took it over.
Oh,
for Dick,
bless him.
And he continued it after Dick couldn't keep doing it. So I think it might still exist as something you could do. But anyway,
was it? How long did it take for you to complete the course?
I don't remember. It was so long ago.
But every couple of weeks you'd have a new assignment,
or you'd have a new chapter. You'd have a new chapter. It wasn't really like assignments. It was just a chapter on how to do matrix molds.
But weren't you expected to kind of these?
If you wanted
chapters?
the certificate, at the end you could submit makeups, and it's like I don't think I ever did.
And he would critique them. You'd submit makeups. He'd critique. So
yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. So Anyway,
Oh,
I thought that was one thing that we left out that was kind of an important development in the history
huh.
of makeup
Yeah.
effects. And yeah, it's
I'm
like, you
glad you
know
did.
what? Anybody, anything we missed, you can tell me, and then maybe someday we'll come back and, or else
Hmm.
I'll give an update, like a shout out to the things that we missed because we are almost at 4 hours. I don't know. Maybe this episode might need to be cut in half. I'm not really sure. I don't know if I've ever done a 3 hour, 45 minute episode, but
Well, we're dealing with something important, the history of makeup effects. And, I've been thinking a lot about how important it is to have a passion,
mm-hmm.
and everyone in the effects industry are passionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's,
and it gets back to the scenius, we fuel one another. And I feel so grateful that I was hit with that, passion arrow for makeup effects young, because it really made me happy. It was a go-to
mm-hmm.
for inspiration and happiness, and it was just, yeah, like guys like Rick and Rob and Dick and all that, and they just made the world less drab.
Yeah.
It
Mm-hmm.
was really wonderful, wonderful, and it's still continuing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
there are so many talented people to be inspired by, and for young people to be inspired by.
Yeah.
So this art is not dead.
Yeah.
It's still going. It's
Yep.
still going.
Still going and
Thank God.
just gotten better and better, really. It's
Yeah.
like there's the baseline is higher than it used to be when we were
Yes.
working, I think.
I think so. I
Yeah.
agree.
But
Yeah.
wow, that was epic. Okay, so I think we should end it.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me. Gosh,
Yeah,
you're letting me talk about this. What an honor. I just really appreciate it, Chet.
yeah, it's
It was really fun.
yeah, I totally enjoyed it, and we'll come back again at some point soon for a one of our dissecting a movie episodes, maybe Jacob's
Okay.
Ladder or something.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, so thank you everybody for listening. That
Bye,
was a long
everybody.
one. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you for hearing us out. And if whatever we missed, let us know in the comments. Oh yeah, like and subscribe. I always forget to say that. But let us know seriously in the comments for things that we left out, if we left out, which I know we left stuff out. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. Bye, everybody.